know exactly. Okay.
It started.
Coming to you live from deep within a muddy, radioactive wasteland, we are the survivors of the social zombie. Ah, what the fuck?
Oh my god!
Oh my god, what the fuck? Where the hell
What is that? Are we being attacked by rock and roll?
I don't... What the... Okay, oh, Jesus fucking Christ! No, what the fuck was that?
Now it's ruined, Alison.
Wow, that was possibly the most spectacular failure I've had yet.
What were we like attacked by rock and roll just now?
I don't
know. Is that like Twisted Sister?
Okay, possibly, but it's over now, so we're good.
Okay.
Right. Well,
I don't see anything
easy fit. So.
The few, the brave, the bitchy.
Yes.
Once again, wading into the.
Wading into battle.
With
zombie hordes. So with the Rantzerker 59.
Number 59.
Number 59. Telegraph informs us all that men's rights activists are repelled by strong female characters, garlic, and sunlight. I don't even. What was that sound for?
It was the vampire hiss when you show them the cross, and they go.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
No. Who fucking has garlic here? That's what's making me sneeze. Fuck.
I love garlic.
All y'all.
I may have garlic.
God.
You might have garlic.
I just eat cloves.
Sorry, I'm dying of a sneeze.
I actually, I eat like raw ginger, so I can't really judge you very much, Brian.
Ooh, the root?
Yes, the root.
Oh my god.
Just
I've been known to eat raw broccoli and raw cauliflower, and people think I'm weird.
Have
I like that
you
stuff.
ever had a roasted garlic head?
It's like soft, right?
Yeah. You like sort of cut the top of the bulb off, and then you put like butter and herbs on the top of it, and you roast it at a high temperature, like 450 or something like that. And it gets all soft and mushy, and then you just like kind of squeeze it out of the skin and spread it on bread.
Delicious.
Yep.
Recently, my husband found some portobello mushrooms at the Safeway nearby, or the co-op, and we had like a mushroom steak, and that was really good.
Yeah.
He cooks really good meat. Like his meat is excellent.
Meat.
Yes.
Is meat.
It is. It's hard to fuck up meat.
Get triggered.
He beats it. Spare the rod, spoil the meat.
He beats the meat. Yeah, he does tend to. This is going rapidly downhill, isn't it?
No, we're talking about foods.
Yes, food is wonderful. It's almost supper time. That's why we're all like salivating.
Talking about food and child abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Two tastes that taste great together. Two tastes.
Glorious food. Hot sausage and mustard, and how the rest of that tale about orphans goes.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway, so I've set myself a goal, or I guess it's not just my goal. It's sort of I set the goal, and it really is up to the listeners to achieve it. So, or me to convince you to do it. But anyway, I want to get up to 1,250. It's our next funding milestone. I don't want to say goal because I already used the word goal several times, so I want to use a different word. So funding milestone, and at that milestone, we will be able to give Mike, the Mike one, and we'll also be able to maybe afford to free up Eduardo a certain amount of time, and Eduardo does some really great work. He's not the artist who did this work today, though. That artist is called
Corvus Crow. He'll be on
Crow.
He's been joining me on art streams lately, and he'll be on this Saturday for an art stream too.
But he has graciously he at last minute created this wonderful illustration of the men's rights vampire being overcome by the strong female character and her strong female ass.
Which is not sexual at all. It's a sign of empowerment, not sex.
Yes.
So
exactly.
If you think it is, you're a bigot.
Yes, you're a bigot.
Yes.
You should feel bad, and you should also flagellate yourself.
See how her ass is right in the middle of the shot there? It's close enough. Look at the ass. Look at the asses.
Well, the ass is also... Well, it's not even that it's in the middle of the shot. It also has all the radial lines converging on her anus. So it's really hard not to look at the ass.
It's glutocentrism.
Yes. Oh God. Anyway, so I set this goal to get our fundraiser, our patron, patreon.com/honeybadgerradio. It's with an E because they want to be all hipstery. Up to 1,250. We are at 1,074, so we need another. I guess I got to convince like 8 of you to donate like $25, or 20 of you to donate 10 or something. Anyway. If we could get that done by sometime in June, we're going to do some lovely gifts. Karen has already started writing, or at least tent-polling, a slash fiction between Trump and Bernie.
I totally masturbated to just the sort of my like initial ideas today about Bernie and Trump.
Really?
Oh yeah, no, I've been putting in a lot of work, a lot of sweat, a lot of effort.
That's the acid test, isn't it? That's how you take this idea out for a drive. See if I can stick to this.
Yeah, see if you can fap to it, then it's good.
Yeah, no, got like freaking. I'm not so good at typing one-handed anymore, so I'm just gonna let the idea just like percolate.
Okay, someone says I want Sargon plus Milo. That's too easy, friends. Too easy. Too obvious.
Yeah, they were on like fucking camera together and being all like, oh my God, are they gonna kiss? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, that's way too drunk. We need a crack pairing, something a little bit more, a little more challenging.
Yeah, we gotta upset people with that. You can't upset people with Sargon and Milo.
No, you can't upset. It's just too obvious. But we're going to be tasteful about it and respectful.
That's low-hanging fruit.
Yes, very low-hanging.
Very low, yes.
And do they...
Those are low-hanging berries right there.
Do they sway to and fro?
they do. Like clackers.
Somebody say tasteful and respectful.
Oh shit, it isn't? Like, wait a second, could you just give me like a little bit of an outline? Like, how does it begin?
How do they meet?
How do they meet?
Where does it...
Well, I was always praised for taking the subversive way.
Oh, wait a second. Breaking news just in. New suggestion. Sargon and Steve Shives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they could like rub beards, I suppose, but...
Someone suggested vernaculars in Steve Shives earlier.
No, I could not.
How about common sense in Steve Shives?
I don't know why I do want Sargon to be sullied. I just don't want vernaculars to be sullied. I don't know why.
I couldn't fap to Steve Shives. I couldn't.
Not even with the Steve Shives hot shoulder?
No. He looks like he's made out of cold fish.
Hey, baby. I'm a feminist.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that the Trudeau sign?
This is how I conceal my jump cuts.
Yeah. Well, actually, Trudeau is recently, I don't know, maybe there's some sort of female lizard brain that has responded to Trudeau, seizing the moment and striding through that crowd of people. He actually seems to be more attractive to me somehow. Too bad he fucking apologized like a gimp.
It's the elbows.
Yeah, no, the elbow totally won me. He won me with the... He had me at elbow, and then he lost me at I'm sorry.
Well, he's so adorable, or like he's so cute when he's angry. Just angry Trudeau.
I don't know. I haven't seen him angry. Maybe it's maybe that's a Canadian thing. But I want to see, when I think of anger, I think of like Jesse Ventura, reptilians in government anger. That's what I want to see. But maybe that's just because
That's
American.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just seem to recall you, Alison, when we were reviewing that footage, you going, well, he's actually really tall.
Well, that's just a statement of fact.
Yeah, I know, but it's like, all of a sudden, I'm reconsidering.
Yeah, I'm reconsidering whether or not this man is actually attractive because he's shown some level of assertiveness. But too bad he just completely abdicated it.
No,
I mean,
yeah.
my husband, if he elbowed me in the boob, he'd probably be laughing about it for a good 5 minutes.
Oh fuck yeah! Like my ex, we were having like a knockdown, drag out fucking fight one night, and he, I went into the bedroom and I slammed the door and I was stalking away from the door and then I went to was like, fuck, he's just gonna follow me in. So I went to go lock the door and he opened the door and like, bam, right in my fucking head, right? So like this huge fucking goose egg in the middle of my forehead from him opening the door to come in. And he apologized and apologized. That was the end of the fight. That was it. That was like the end of it. Right, like, oh shit, oh my god, like, are you okay, you know? And then I'm so sorry, like, I really didn't mean to do that. You know, I didn't mean to do that, right? You know, and over and over and over. And I finally was just like, just fucking shut up, right? Don't apologize. Like, I know it was a fucking accident. God damn it.
Yeah, well, if it was an accident, I don't think Jonathan would apologize. Yeah, he's an interesting fellow.
Or you're just like, oops, sorry, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I was careless, sorry, and then that's it. God, I feel so terrible.
Well, we're sort of trained to know that women will pick up on the slightest bit of an argument and then bring it up 5 years later. So when you get bashed in the head with a door, we think, oh fuck, this is going to come up in every other argument for the next 10 years, isn't it?
Or it's like,
not.
Man,
there's something way more deep and sinister about that. It's something she never has to
I
bring.
wish Trudeau had
called the police on me or something, right? Yeah.
I wish Trudeau had responded more the way my husband would have, because he probably would have said, "Woman, why did you have your boob there?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't you step out of the way? Like, what the fuck?
Why didn't you notice that I was barreling through like a rhino, and protect yourself accordingly? All right. No, he's actually a really nice guy. Anyway.
If it was my dad, if Trudeau was my dad and I was her, he'd have called me a bohunk.
A bohunk? Okay, so let's do let's cut the shit and do the deal. Not quite get stuck in yet, but yeah. If you're listening and you're not currently a patron, consider telling me why. Send the answers to topic@badgerpod.com, and we have an answer, a very interesting one from Henry the Potato. This is literally the most useless information that could possibly be sent to you as a response to your incessant request that your viewers tell you why they are not yet a patron to your Patreon. I am conflicted on whether or not I should even write this because it is so useless. Yet every video that you insist that I send this, so I suppose that you can decide whether or not this is a waste of time right about now. And I can assure you, Henry the Potato, I do not think that your missive is a waste of time, which is why I am now reading it. As for my reason, it is because I literally have no disposable income. None whatsoever. Not even an income to cover 50 cents. Literally an income of zero. Well, actually, that's only partially true because obviously when the market fluctuates positively, everyone's money in the bank becomes more valuable and therefore people get free money for doing nothing. But that kind of random free money is never a certainty. So I wouldn't say I could rely on it, but perhaps I'll change my mind on that. But yeah, that is literally it. I am not donating because I cannot. This is the fate of a sentient spudkin of the potato species, just as much as a person as human, but physically unable to come anywhere near matching them. So not only do I not have a disposable income of any kind, but I am too physically disabled to do any average human job in order to acquire such an income. I'd need a job that I could literally roll my face on, since that is my only means of locomotion. However, when I have the income to spare, I will become a patron. This I vow. But again, this information is ultimately useless, however, written fancifully in hopes to seem more than useless. My apologies to you if you wasted your time reading this. Sincerely, your Spudkin follower.
That's the least useless thing I've ever heard a potato say. It was wonderful. I didn't know how potatoes felt, and now I do.
Yeah, I actually didn't know how potatoes engaged in locomotion either. I thought they just sort of sent out runners and left it at that.
No, totally just rolling around with the face.
Yeah, rolling around in the face. That's the way they roll. That's the way they go. We should do that too, eh?
No, it's true because like my daughter, she's one of those. She's a potato.
And they just sort of roll.
Not physically, but just attitudinally. And she's just like she's like.
Ooh, look at this. Someone in the chat says SMT Dane. I'm going to sell my body to give HBR Cass. Anyone interested? Huh. I wonder how quickly we'd be shut down if we started selling people's bodies for money.
Smart Dane, SMT Dane. In what way do you say you're going to sell your body? Like you're going to give away your organs?
No,
Those
I don't
can be
think
worth a bit. Or are you talking about like prostitution? And when you talk about prostitution, how far are you willing to go? Like, I mean,
these are critical
how
details.
broad are we making your audience here? I mean, we can,
Why don't you send us, write out your details
yeah.
and send and whether or not you do Windows, and send it all to topic@badgerpod.com, and maybe we can get you hooked up if you're going to be that, if you're willing to go that far. All right. Okay.
Is that
so
hard
yes,
labor?
I don't know. But I guess part of it is hard. And then the other part would have to be
You're a sucker if you sell your body. Your soul is far more valuable. That's
Yeah,
all.
but who is it really a seller's market when it comes to the soul?
And you have to be a sucker, because otherwise you're not going to make as much.
You'll let Alison finger his asshole for 15 minutes. No. I don't think that's at all beneficial to this. Anyway, so if you're listening now, tell us why not. Tell us why if you have, because some people write in and they tell us yes. And usually it's prefaced by saying Alison finally nagged me into it, and but yeah, send all those thoughts to topic@badgerpod.com. And if you're listening now, just think about it. Think about why not. And oh yeah, I have the thing to start. So do you want to start? Shall we start?
Let us begin. Let us dip our toes into the madness.
Okay, you got to give me the control.
Without staring too hard into it, though.
You got to give me the control, Brian.
Relay. What is this? Raleigh? I'm sharing controls now.
Okay.
There. You has.
Okay. Did you want to just intro what the fuck we're about to talk about?
I don't.
You don't know.
I don't really know. I wanted to surprise myself with this.
Okay. Well,
the title kind of summarizes it.
Yeah. But could you give us the title, Mike, or I'll have to unshare and do all of that stuff.
It's still. Let's go to the top. Deluded men's rights activists are. Oh fuck! There's an advert in the way. Right. Deluded men's rights activists are conspiracy nut jobs. Don't believe a word they say.
That always, when somebody says something like that, don't believe a word they say.
It was actually an M dash, Mike, not a hyphen.
I was just going to ask. It's there is a difference as N dash, M dash, and hyphen, but is that actually a good use of any of those things? Like, is that where you would normally put an M dash?
Yes.
I think because it's a title.
No, it would
use a period in a title.
What the fuck is the difference between an M dash and a hyphen?
M dash is longer.
A hyphen joins two words together.
Okay, so you wouldn't usually join two phrases in a title with an M dash, right? Or
no,
or
you
with a hyphen.
totally would. And absolutely people do. It's sort of
Stylistic?
It's like a replacement for a semicolon. Anywhere where, like when I was writing fiction, anywhere where I would have placed the semicolon, on the advice of my English teacher, my publisher would have replaced with an M dash.
And there are very few situations where you need a semicolon instead of a comma or just an ordinary colon. It's just there to look posh. It's like the word whom. You never need to say whom. It just sounds posh.
Okay, but we're
totally need to say whom. Mike, I object.
You don't need to. There's almost no situation where who will not get the message across. But
For who the bell tolls is like completely fucking bogus. I'm sorry.
I don't know what it means.
But I still have a question, a burning question in my mind. Where are the instances that a semicolon is appropriate use?
Lists. Usually lists.
Okay, usually lists.
No, well, yes, and a semicolon is appropriate when you have two clauses that could stand alone as their own sentences, perhaps.
But are thematically linked?
They are thematically linked, or they're heavily reliant on each other, and you want to connect them. You put the semicolon in. So,
right.
and they're almost grammatically correct sentences on their own, but you connect them. And without an and, you could possibly put an and in there, or some kind of conjunctive, fucking clause in there, but instead you replace it with a semicolon.
A colon sort of means these things, and a semicolon means such as, if you like.
All right, but you do realize that all of this, none of you guys listening should be listening to us because we're deluded. So all of this information about grammar you should just flush out of your brains because you're being told it by men's rights activists or whatever the fuck we're calling ourselves. Okay, let us begin.
Deluded men's rights activists are conspiracy nut jobs. Don't believe a word they say. Every day I ask myself, am I the real victim here? Just kidding. I never ask myself this question. I live in a stable, rich, first-world democracy, and even with this privileged setting I have lots of advantages. I was born into a nice, well-off family. I'm a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. I have no disabilities, mental issues, or even major allergies. But most importantly, in my day-to-day life, I am a man.
Like, just in your day-to-day life, not in your, like, fantasy life, not in your dreams, not in your aspirations, but in your day-to-day life.
I was wondering that myself.
Not while you're on vacation.
In contrast to what? Like, in your day-to-day life, you're a man.
I just, like...
On your weekends, or on vacation, like you were saying, Garen, whenever he leaves...
He's Wonder Woman!
He's Wonder Woman.
Like, what?
Day-to-day life, I'm a man by night.
Oddly enough, the following paragraph does sound like a fucking superhero's resume.
Yeah, well...
I've got to say a lot of fucking behold my mighty chromosomes. Society just bounces off my chest. I am immune to all of the things in society, for I am.
Allow me to introduce myself. I'm billionaire Bruce Wayne.
Okay. But yeah, it's like he's establishing that he can't possibly be a victim. Okay.
Yeah, he's establishing that he's a whole bunch of things that women can also be, which is like really fucking retarded. And the only thing that differentiates, I'm incredibly privileged to be living in a modern Western democracy. I'm incredibly privileged to have been born into, reasonable wealth and upper middle class family. I'm incredibly privileged to have been born a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. I'm incredibly privileged to have been, educated, blah, 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 right? All things that equally apply to women, if not more so, right? And then he's like none of that matters because penis.
Yeah, the other thing that just occurred as you were speaking, Karen, is that you have a white guy saying, all of these things are irrelevant because I'm a man, which means that everybody who isn't those things, isn't white, isn't heterosexual, isn't Protestant, isn't middle class, all of the people who are those things are less important to help than women, which means that once again, women appropriate all of the concern and sympathy, specifically white women, because you're in this is a very subtle, complete dismissal of every other kind of oppression aside from the one faced by women. Yeah. So we don't have to concern ourselves with people who are poor. We don't have to concern ourselves with people who are brown. We don't have to concern ourselves with people who are handicapped or any of the other things. We just have to concern ourselves with women. And usually those women, it's even more egregious that those women who have no other problem except that they're women are oppressed. So those are the women we need to focus on. And you see how that goes, that appropriates all of the concern and the attention from all of those categories back up to women who are none of those categories.
Oh yeah, no, of course, because
it's like a siphon.
The only thing that matters is the D. It's just the D. Oh.
I'm going to try again. I'm going to try again, guys. I'm going to reload and try again. Because I know that nobody understands what the fuck I'm saying ever, or rarely. But you guys understand, occasionally, sometimes. Yeah. And it's just my fault when you don't, because I haven't explained it clearly. But essentially this white guy is saying that the most important factor of oppression is gender. It's more important than all of those other factors. Just gender is the most important. So we don't have to really concern ourselves with people who are oppressed by those other factors. We only have to concern ourselves with people who are oppressed by gender. And of course, the people who are most oppressed by gender are white women, because they're not oppressed by any other factor. Therefore, we need to care about them most. Do you see how that works?
Yep.
It's fucked up logic. It's not really logic, but that's the progression. Anyway, shall I continue?
Well, I wanted to say one more thing. He's beginning. I think he's starting his argument. I mean, I haven't seen the article, but when he starts the sentence with "Every day I ask myself, am I the real victim here?" I think he's trying to make the argument, and maybe I'm wrong because we haven't gotten to it. That's what MRAs are saying. That this is a common thing that you see where when feminists are debating with MRAs or when people are just talking about them, that the idea is that MRAs are trying to make the argument that they are the real oppressed class and that women are the ones that rule everything. Right. And that is not accurate. That's just not what any MRA is saying as far as I know. But he's starting from that false idea that there are people that think, oh, women really run everything. Women have all the power. Well, that's not what MRAs are saying, though. That's a feminist thinking, right?
It's the opposite model. It's the opposite model to what feminists already believe. So, of course, they think that we think the opposite, right?
Okay.
This means I'm likely to get paid more. I am much more likely to be the CEO of a company.
Much more likely.
Shall we just go through each one of these times? Okay, you may be more likely to be paid more, but you are not more likely to spend more. Mm-hmm. And
more likely to pay child support or alimony.
Yeah, you're not more likely to be able to spend more or control more spending than women. So generally throughout history, the populations that had to earn more to control as much spending weren't the privileged ones. Because at some point in time between earning and spending, the government generally took their parts of their wages away and gave them to other people. And I'm not even talking about this in a communist or like a Marxist sense. I'm talking about this is very common in like slave-owning societies, and that does not mean that I'm saying that men were slaves. I'm saying that if your argument for oppression equally applies to slave groups, it's not a good argument for oppression. So, if you say, oh, well, this thing is experienced by women, and this and that thing is also experienced by people who owned slaves in the past.
Yeah.
Probably not an indication of oppression. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, I'm not saying that women are slave owners and men are slaves. I'm just saying that's probably not an indication of oppression if it also applies to slave owners.
Well, you'd be more likely to win the lottery if you were a woman. Do you know why? Because women play the lottery more than men. Now, I don't know if that second part is true, but the first part is true. And that doesn't mean women are privileged. Now, if it was true that women won the lottery more just because they played more, it means they play more. And the same goes for men being CEOs, except it's not just a case of likely. A fucking 8-year-old boy doesn't think, oh, I'm likely to be a CEO because of my penis. It's not a fucking lottery. They're more likely to become CEOs. Like, less than lottery chances, by the way, because fucking God knows there's not many CEOs in the world.
I know, you can like walking down the street one day and somebody's like, hey, buddy, I got a job for you. It's called CEO.
All you need to do is show me your penis.
Yeah, you got one of them penis things? Come on in. You're in, kid. That's all you need. Like, what the fuck? Like, and more likely to be CEO? Okay, so also more likely to be homeless. Also more likely to fucking be living in your car while paying for other people to live in a house, right? Like, more likely to go to prison, for the exact same fucking crime. More likely to die in any situation, die violently, right? Other than perhaps domestic violence, although there's no way to know that because all I know is there was a story of a domestic violence death in the UK just recently, a newlywed getting stabbed to death by his new bride after a history, such a long history of her abusing him that he had to wear makeup to cover his black eye on his wedding day, right? And it was not called a domestic violence murder in the press. So I don't know whether that was categorized as a domestic violence death.
Yeah, you know, if you don't categorize women killing men as domestic violence deaths, then it's another completely fatuous conclusion to come to that most domestic violence deaths are due to men. Just like when you don't categorize women as being able to rape using their vagina, it's a completely fatuous It actually becomes a boggling statistic that there's even 1% of rapists are not men.
How the fuck does that even
How
happen?
does that happen? So when a feminist comes out with 99% of rapists are men, well, yeah, because rape is defined to categorically exclude vaginas as the instrument of rape. So what? I could do that too. We could do that right now. 99% of all rapists are women. I just used a definition of rape that excludes rape by penetration. So yeah, men don't rape. No, men don't rape women with their penises. They just give them surprise sex, or yeah, it's just sex that ambivalent. The woman was ambivalent, had ambivalent consent over.
Yeah, yeah.
I did this joke ages ago. Like when a man kills a woman, it's just circulatory compromise. It's not murder.
Yeah, exactly. But when a woman kills a man, it's of course manicide, and that should have a stiffer penalty.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And incidentally, for anybody who's listening who isn't like who is a feminist or is just grinding their teeth, we are referencing real things.
Yeah, no, the femicide laws in Spain are actually like absolutely egregious. I think they have them in Brazil too. Yeah, no, and it doesn't matter the context. It doesn't matter.
And 100% of all victims of femicide are
For
women.
women. Yeah.
Oh my God, it's unbelievable.
And 100% of the perpetrators are men because, by definition, femicide occurs when a man kills a woman for any reason whatsoever. So.
And they don't realize this is totally morally bankrupt. You're literally defining crimes as only applying to one bio group based on a factor based on a biological factor.
Yeah, no, and it's a more severe crime. Like there's different rules of adjudication of this crime, and there's like different penalties, stiffer penalties for this particular crime than for just a regular murder when like a woman kills her daughter, right? Oh yeah, no, that's fine. That's just 10 years, right? When a man kills his daughter, it's like, oh, fucking lock him away for good. Maybe the death penalty. Because, it was a man killing that woman, and that makes it different somehow.
Yeah, but it's like, could you imagine if, feminists would have a point if we lived in a world where there were menticide laws, in which it was more heinous and more severely punished to kill a man, or a woman killing a man than the reverse. I don't think it's ever been the case.
Oh God, no, never. I mean, even in the most fundamentalist Muslim countries, the ratio of executions for crimes committed is anywhere from 50 to 150 men per every woman executed. And there are some crimes that just don't apply to women, like rape.
Okay, let's finish up with let's go a little bit further in.
An MP, or at the top of any...
An MP, okay, alright. The only reason why you're more likely to be an MP is actually because you're more likely to run, period. Because there's no indication that there's any bias against women MPs. And there may be a favorable bias for them. So the only reason that women aren't equal numbers of MPs, if not greater, is because they don't run.
Well, because you haven't got a Trudeau yet.
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
Profession you care to name?
What?
Except perhaps modeling.
Oh, any profession you care to name except modeling.
Yeah, it means I'm more likely to get good at what I do. Some wizard is going to turn up in the night and click his fingers, and I'm going to be good at something.
Yeah.
We like a Discworld wizard?
There's never any connection in these guys' minds between the absolute success, like the incredible level of success that men have, relative to women. It's not incredible, but it's decent. It's great. And the fact that the pressure put on men is so severe that many men wash out. The pressure to be successful is absolute on men. You're either a success or you're nothing. And because the pressure, that success or nothing pressure leads to the same thing: homelessness, suicide, drug abuse, mental illness problems that completely undealt with. It leads to workplace death, an injury. These are all things that are directly connected to the tremendous pressure on men to be successful. And not surprisingly, because of this tremendous pressure to be successful, men are successful. But they're also, like, on the one hand, they're successful, but on the other hand, they're also discarded when they're not successful, which is why there is such pressure to be successful. And they don't see the connection between these two things.
Yeah, no,
they just can't.
They never see the connection between the glass cellar and the glass ceiling, right? And that there's that most women, in terms of success, socioeconomic status or whatever, they're clustered around the middle where it's nice and safe, right? You're never gonna reach you're never gonna soar like Icarus, and you're never gonna crash like Icarus either, right? You're just gonna be in that sort of sweet spot, right? That's where you're going to be.
Incidentally, the sweet spot where there is no greater happiness attained by getting any higher. That's the other thing. If you look at the statistics on happiness, women are right at the sweet spot. They're right in the band in which if you actually work anymore and earn more, you're actually probably not going to be happier.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and they are not they're not very well represented in that sort of underneath that other margin, right? Of here's what you need to just fulfill your basic first tier Maslow requirements, right? That like food, shelter, sex, right? Eating, pooping, right? Those things. There are very few women who are below that benchmark. Compared to the number of men. And so, you essentially have men inhabiting the top and the bottom. And I'm sorry, but there's how many 100,000, something like 200,000 homeless men who sleep rough in the United States, maybe more, right?
Yeah.
They're hard to count because they're, by definition, hard to find. How many billionaires are there? How many politicians are there? High-level freaking Congress, the Senate, President, Attorney General.
Yeah, if you look at a while back, I did like some statistics into the garbage gap, and I compared men in the top CEO positions to all of the men in possibly the worst professions, and it was something like 1 to either 10 or 20. And for women, it was more like one, like there was, for every one female politician or female CEO, it was more like maybe there were 2 in a bad, like a one. I essentially looked at all of the worst professions and what the breakdown of genders were and how many men and women were in the worst professions. And then I compared that to how many men and women were in CEO positions. And I think the garbage gap ended up being around, I think 1 to 10 to 20 for men, and about 1 to, it might have actually been just 1 to 1 for women, or 1 to 2 or 3.
Yeah, no, you just don't see it. You just don't see it. Like homeless women, they don't sleep rough the way men do.
We found out that from there's even just subtle things that happen, differences, and we found that from Sevi, when she was talking about her work with the homeless and having lived homeless. The women will get the best begging spots. They're more likely to be successful at begging.
Oh God, yeah. It was like that one guy who was out in the parking lot of the grocery store begging. And I gave him some money because he whether he was lying or not, he had a good spiel, and he really seemed to be quite shocked, right, at the fact that like people would swear at him and spit at him and stuff. Like he was just like, I don't even know what's going on. Like, what universe am I in, right? So it seemed like this is like a new thing to this guy.
You're in the universe where men are vulnerable.
Yeah, but I said to him, because he was like, well, my wife's at home. She thought I was crazy coming out here, and I'm starting to think she was right. And I said, you should have sent her out. You'd be like, you'd have plenty of money at this point. You'd have plenty to get you through the weekend till the wire transfer comes through on Monday.
Yes, exactly. All right, let's. I mean, and that. I mean, just to expound upon that, this guy's never going to think about that. I mean, the man that you talk to, just entered the world where he was expressing vulnerability to people who were just passing by, and of course he got abuse because he's a man being vulnerable. And
Well,
the funny thing is
he found
that
it. He found it really, 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 really strange and upsetting because he was always sort of that guy who had the, $10 or $20 for somebody who was, out of work or, like just needed something to get through or whatever, right? He said I was always that guy. I was always that guy who had a little bit extra to just, give to somebody who was having a hard time. And here I am, and it's just like people are spitting on me. It's like,
yeah. And the funny thing is that the guy who wrote this article, he probably knows on some level that in the instant that he expresses any vulnerability, he's open to not just emotional attack but also physical attack by other people. Being spit on, being treated with contempt, and so he's making a display of invulnerability. And I think at some level he must know that he just can't handle, and it's unfortunate because I can sympathize with the situation that this particular guy's in, and I think a lot of male feminists are in, because really, can we say to men that outside of maybe Honey Badger Radio that there's any place for their vulnerabilities to be heard where they're not going to be spit on? I mean, consistently, like we can say, yeah, you can go to this place. I mean, maybe Mankind UK and other places that we support.
yeah, no,
Um,
it's just not a safe thing to do for a guy.
no, and I wonder how much the motivation behind these affectations, like just clinging to this feminist notion that men have no vulnerabilities, and if they do have any vulnerabilities, it's ultimately their fault, so they don't really count, is just a way to shield men from the reality that if they are vulnerable, they're going to be spit on. That's sad. Okay, let's continue. I've bummed myself out.
I am vastly less likely to be a victim of domestic violence or discrimination of any sort.
Vastly less likely to be a victim of domestic violence, according to statistics that are distorted by a concerted collective effort for the victimhood of men to be minimized.
Yeah, no, and then he's like, or discriminated against in any way, and it's like, yeah, you know why you're not discriminated against is because officially, by the official definition of discrimination, discriminating against you isn't actually illegal. It's not actually considered to be discrimination.
Yeah, the official definition of discrimination discriminates against you.
Yeah. So essentially, you're stuck, right? Like men, right? And I don't care that you're white Anglo-Saxon Protestant or upper middle class or any of that fucking bullshit. I really don't care. Okay, you're a man. You have a penis. Therefore, it is perfectly legal to discriminate against you, right? And I'm sorry, but that's the very definition of discrimination, is when it's okay. There's no law, there's no social norm, there's no social expectation, there's no anything that is going to punish or penalize or shame or whatever anybody if they choose to discriminate against you. So if somebody's like, oh fuck, I was going to hire this guy, but he's got a penis, I'm going to hire the woman instead, right? That's perfectly fine. In fact, they'll be like, oh, hey, this law says that I have to take the woman instead of this guy because, patriarchy or some shit. Yeah, no, that's perfectly fine too, right? Like, literally, oh my God, it is perfectly 100% legal for anybody to discriminate against you as a man. Right? There are very, very limited cases where anybody has actually been able to bring a successful case of discriminating against men, and it's almost always some piddling thing like, oh, they charge cover charge on Thursday nights at the bar for men but not for women, and that's discrimination, right? It's never about the important stuff, right? Nobody's ever won a fucking lawsuit, right? A class action lawsuit suing the family court over custody bias, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Ooh, echo. Karen. Okay. Let's move on.
Ouch. And I probably do less of the cleaning and childcare too.
Yeah, because you're a dick, okay? You know, or maybe it's because you work more than your wife. Oh my
Why
God.
did he have to say probably? You could have easily just said, I do less of the cleaning and childcare too, because you're talking about men in general, but you're quite happy to talk about yourself in other contexts. So that's you saying, I do actually do quite a lot of the cleaning and childcare, but I probably don't, or something.
I just can't get over the fact that nothing that he said really supports his notion of invulnerability. Like it's like an incantation that he's saying, I'm not vulnerable, I'm not vulnerable, I'm not vulnerable, and it's not, and nothing that he's saying actually supports the contention. And it's how do you get through that? How do you break through that felt shield, you know, and get in there and make these guys able to just accept their vulnerabilities? And it's an you know, like when I think about it, it's something that bothers me because how can we give them, like, we can't say, yeah, there's a space where you're not going to be spit on if you express your vulnerabilities. So I don't know. Go ahead, Mike. You tried to butt in there.
No, I think that was me, but there's no way to rip through it, really. It's like I think that this guy, I think like many men, this guy is gonna have to he's gonna have to experience, you know, the
Yeah, but that what ends up happening?
having the weight of the system against him, right? Because that's I think the only way that some of these guys can actually be convinced that these problems that men face are actually systemic, is if they actually feel the weight of the system, right? Otherwise, it's just oh well, he must have just fucking fucked up, right? He must have stuck his dick in crazy. He must have, you know, just picked wrong. He must have, you know, blah blah blah, right? Or he must have made some bad choice, you know, that led her, you know, that somehow caused her to falsely accuse him of something, right? It's, you know, like but, you know, like, I think some of these guys need to just be walking along, minding their own business, and have the weight of the system just come crashing down on them before they'll realize that there's actually a fucking problem, right? It's like it's like Judith Grossman, right? When her son was falsely accused of raping his ex-girlfriend, right? And that not so much the accusation, but the process within the university system that he had to deal with was so fundamentally unfair. And she's a lawyer, right? And she's like, what the fuck is going on? And I'm like, well, you're a feminist. You fucking fought for this, right? You were backing this up every step of the way. You were cheering, right? Till the unforeseen day that it happened to your son, and then all of a sudden it's...
Yeah, let's introduce something from the chat. Con Burner says, if you claim men's problems are systemic, that opens the door to women claiming the same. Self-responsibility both ways is, I think, the best view.
No, when the law literally says that it's okay to discriminate against you and you alone, right? To discriminate based on penis. It's illegal to discriminate based on vagina. It's illegal
pretty systemic.
to discriminate based on color of your skin or your religion or your sexual orientation. Totally illegal to do that, but it's completely, totally, 100%. I want you to check out exactly what Earl Silverman had to go through, right? That was a systemic. You cannot fucking ever convince me that that was not a systemic problem. When he's going to the province that allocates funds for domestic violence victims, right, and they say, oh, domestic violence is considered a women's issue in Canada, therefore it has to be, any allocation of funds has to be vetted and authorized by Status of Women Canada, right, which is a branch of the fucking government that only serves women. So he goes to them and they say, well, we don't serve men, go back to the province, right? And the province says, well, we can't allocate any funds without their permission. So he goes back to them and they say, well, we only deal with women's issues, go back to the province. That's a fucking systemic issue. And then when he goes to try to sue for discrimination, first off, he's told that you can't sue based on discrimination against men because it's perfectly legal to discriminate against men. You can't sue on that basis. Then when he finally argued successfully that the law needs to change as the situation changes, what did they tell him? Well, except for there's nobody in government whose job it is to give you these funds, therefore there's no one you can sue. That's a systemic problem.
Yeah, this is a systemic problem.
Yes, systemic is a misused word and occasionally a vague word, but it's not a non-word, and you can tell the difference. Like when a feminist says catcalling is a systemic problem, ask them which system, and they go, social, and you know, they just paint themselves into a corner of nothingness. But if you ask us what system are you talking about that's affecting men here, legal, the legal system. Karen just fucking mentioned it. We can point to fucking pieces of paper here.
When feminists talk, there's no paper trail to the so-called systemic discriminations that women face. There's nobody funding them. I'm going to use an example that's dear to my heart. There is a Canada-wide campaign directed at men that resembles goddamn Nazi propaganda. Except it's, instead of targeting Jewish men, it targets all men. It's the Don't Be That Guy campaign. And the themes and everything, the imagery is right out of Nazi propaganda. And it's paid for by the government. That's systemic. It has a paper trail. There's an institution. There are groups of people you can point to engaging in the activity. You can see there's accounting involved in it. That's systemic. Like there's no invoice for catcalling. You know, and the wage gap doesn't really have the science behind it. Although the spending gap, you know, it also probably needs a lot more science. But you know, these things, the idea of a systemic discrimination is that it is legal. It's written right in the law. And as much as I understand that men do not like the role of victim, at some point, if the shoe fucking fits, you gotta let it go.
Yeah.
Because it's just gonna get worse, and it's not even for you that I say that. It's for for boys. It's for infants. It's for little boy babies.
Yeah, you know, because they're not protected by the law, right? Girls are systemically, right? Boys are not protected systemically.
And if you're going to say that isn't systemic, like, certainly hold feminists to the same criteria we hold ourselves. If there is no fucking paper trail, then it's not systemic. If there is an institution that's actually doing it, you can't name the fucking institution that's practicing the discrimination. If that institution doesn't have an official title and have to submit either oversight it doesn't have a budget. Or a government budget, or doesn't have to submit its financials then it's not institutional. If someone isn't paying for it, it's probably not institutional. That's how you determine the difference. And it's probably not systemic. If there's a law against it, it's definitely not systemic. You just have to use common sense and reason.
Yeah.
Not these like, oh my God, that word sounds like this other word that feminists use, therefore bad. That's ridiculous.
No, it is. It's ridiculous. Look at that episode of The Big Questions with Milo, and when he dropped the darling bomb on Kate Smurthwaite's friend there, and Kate Smurthwaite immediately starts piping up. he called her darling, and he's laughing about it. That's institutional sexism.
That's it. Basically, that what they mean by institutional is that a man did it, and men are obviously as a result of the men obviously are tied into the Jewish cabal that controls everything. Thus, it's institutional.
Yeah, apparently.
It's like this shit is ridiculous. And when the patriarchy does the patriarchy submit tax? Does the patriarchy submit taxes? Does it have to do like a review at the end of the year? Does it have to do quarterly reports? Does the patriarchy exist as an entity anywhere in a paper? No. It's unlikely that such a thing actually exists. How would it fucking be organized? How would it perpetuate itself? How would it maintain its operations? It's like, this just reminds me of the arguments I get into with feminists who are like, if men's rights activists want to do anything, they would smash the patriarchy. And I would say, why don't we actually just build domestic violence shelters for men? So, as Karen says, they can legitimate their choice to leave their wives and not lose their kids in a divorce. Why don't we create solutions for male victims of rape and sex? Why don't we give money to people to help men who are victims? Why don't we pursue brick and mortar solutions? You know what that gets me? It gets me fucking banned. And it gets me blocked.
Yeah. Well,
how the fuck do you fight an institution that has absolutely no institutionality? Like,
yeah.
Basically, it seems like patriarchy or institution is basically just saying that men's agency means more. When a man does it, it's institutional, even though there's no fucking invoice attached to it.
Yeah, no, and there's no badge.
Receivable.
There's no badge. There's no certificate. There's no anything.
Nothing.
Yeah.
And it's not institutional when it favors women, even when there is a goddamn paper trail attached to it,
yeah,
and you have rubber stamps from several goddamn institutions.
Affirmative action.
That's not institutional.
Affirmative action, which overwhelmingly benefits white women, by the way, in the U.S. and in Canada. That's not institutional discrimination. The preferential hiring of women over men. Not institutional. No.
So to summarize, occasionally we're going to
mandate, mind you.
Occasionally we're going to say something that sounds like the kind of thing a feminist would say, but it's because what feminists do is steal intelligent-sounding phrases from other people, from smart people, and co-opt them to make them sound. So inevitably things are going to clash, and they steal smart-sounding words and overuse them until they're useless. I was reading through one of my old comments from a couple of years ago, and I used the word problematic. I thought, oh, Mike, you fucking SJW. But this was 2 years ago, before it turned into the massive cliche it is. And I thought, well, shit, they've taken over that word now. I can't use the word problematic anymore in an unironic way because the feminists have stolen it. And it seems like the same things happen with systemic. At some point, we have to take these words back. They're useful.
Yeah, they are useful. And maybe something occurred to me that maybe that's part of the point. You take away those words, and we can't talk about some real problems that are in there. We no longer have the language to talk about real problems, and it's not language that's the problem. It's not. It's when they use these terms as thought-terminating cliches instead of as parts of proper arguments and rational conclusions and observations. But we are like, we're an hour in, and we're like 1 minute in. Oh, okay.
Okay.
Listen. All right.
Nobody ever sexually harasses me or belittles me because of my...
Maybe you're just ugly.
Yeah, also you have a tiny dick.
Well, it's probably made out of felt, too.
Have you seen the guy? He looks like George Costanza.
You probably have a dick that's like one of those Muppet arms, like those little tube arms. Like,
it's fucking crazy carrot. That's
noodle. It's not like a firm al dente noodle either, but just like an overcooked noodle. That's probably what your dick looks like, and it's probably really small, almost microscopic, right?
Okay, so guy
ever discusses your sexual parts. Nobody ever says anything negative about your looks or anything like that. Nobody ever sexually harasses you. I guess.
Well, the next time he writes something like this, we've just checked off all of those boxes for him, so he should be, to be honest, he can't say never anymore.
Yeah, no, he should like excellent. He's hit a milestone.
Yeah, and you're wrong. Men are also sexually harassed, and it looks like men are actually getting a lot more vocal about their sexual harassment too. So the statistics are starting to even out. Although, if you look at if you look at the statistics, I remember Teal Deer showing this to us before, and I'm pretty sure, I need to be corrected on this, but I'm pretty sure that my impression is accurate. When you looked at the statistics on all sexual harassment charges, I think it was about 70% of them were brought by women, and 30% or something was brought by men. But then when you looked at the statistics on sexual harassment charges that were found to be founded, not unfounded, so sexual harassment charges with merit, the statistics of men versus women who brought up sexual harassment charges with merit went much closer to like 50 or 60-40, or something, 50-50 or 60-40. So even though more women charge for sexual harassment, it seems that more men bring forward charges of sexual harassment with merit.
Yeah, no, it's because men know that they have to prove it, right? And women know that they'll be much more likely to be taken on their word, right? And to have even a trivial complaint taken more seriously than they.
Of course, the feminists would say that it's a reverse, but.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, just like look at fucking Lacey Green and her freaking false rape accusations video. What did she say? 2 sentences back to back, right? There's this idea that men can't even be raped, and they get, it's like they get congratulated and stuff, right? Instead of, sympathized with. But the reason why people don't believe survivors is because they're overwhelmingly women, right? And it's like, what?
How did you fit that such a consensus amount of complete contradiction into your head and say those two?
And write in 2 back-to-back sentences. Yeah.
Men aren't believed when they're subject to rape, but the reason why we don't believe rape victims is because they're not men. Okay. I need more Codger.
Agenda. I could go on, but it's pointless.
Because you couldn't actually go on. Okay, listen.
Pretty much any area, I have the upper hand.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just gonna I think I'm gonna contact Jesse Brown of Canada Land and see if I can't start a media whispering campaign about Alex Proud having sexually assaulted me at some point. And then we'll see. We'll see if Jesse Brown, because he really likes those kind of anonymous, spurious, sexual assault allegations that get put forth in the media. He likes to do that, and I can just we'll see whether he has the upper hand.
You have to know what it sounds like, Alex, when you approach women saying, "I have the upper hand in every area, and this is down to having a Y chromosome." It's worrying, Alex.
Yeah,
it seems like you want to throw down, like you want to kick off, like you're spawning for a rumble, like you think a bit tasty, son. You see what I'm saying?
It's like that wizard that gives men CEO positions. He also stands in front of women and says, "You shall not pass."
Unless you answer this obscure nerd trivia.
No, but it really does seem like he must be, he feels like he has to be in the superior position, right? And I don't know whether it's because he feels like he is superior or whether he just needs to feel like he is considered superior by everybody else, right? I mean, because there's a difference between your self-concept as superior and, the impression that everybody else has about, whether or not you're superior. I'm sure that everybody understands that difference, right? And I don't know which of those this guy seems to need so badly to prop up, but it really does seem like he needs to see himself as in the superior position, fairly or unfairly, right?
But it's pointless. In pretty much any area, I have the upper hand, and this...
It does sound a bit. Oh man, that does sound. I don't know. It just doesn't sound good.
Well, you got to remove the Codger's inflection, and
In every area, I have the upper hand. Okay, Karen, let me say it to you, and you give me your impression. Karen, in every area, I have the upper hand.
oh fuck, that's creepy.
Yeah, it sounds creepy
Yeah.
and smarmy.
Mandolph the White, hit cis,
Okay.
capitalist.
I have no idea what you're getting at.
It's Gandalf the
You might
White.
as well be saying,
Mandolph.
come at me, bro.
You shall not pass. None
Coming at you, bro.
shall pass. This is but a flesh wound.
Oh yeah, I thought that was actually a Monty Python reference, not a Gandalf the White reference.
No, it's Gandalf the Grey. You shall not pass.
Yeah, no, and then the other one is 'tis but a scratch.
And that's from.
Arms off. It's a flesh wound.
That's probably what was going on. When they were falling down the volcano, they were chopping each other's limbs off, going, "Ah, it is but a flesh wound."
No, this from Monty Python is a Search for the Holy Grail.
Yeah, I'm mashing them together.
You don't mash. They don't mash. You're not supposed to mash.
Yes, they do. I'm mashing them.
Like the Balrog swiped Gandalf and took his head clean off and
Because he couldn't answer if it was the airspeed velocity of an unladen
that's
European
right.
swallow.
And then as Gandalf's head was flying off, you just hear was only a flesh wound.
Okay, gotcha. All right.
is down to having a Y chromosome.
Oh, well, let's hear the whole thing together. Let's hear it all together.
Area, I have the upper hand, and this is down to having a Y chromosome.
Okay, so he's utterly and completely superior to women, but just by accident. That's amazing.
Yeah, apparently he didn't do anything to be superior. He didn't.
No, he's granted the superiority by patriarchy, but utterly by accident, men manage to completely subjugate women throughout all of time, and women have been subjugated in such a way that they basically amount to the most pathetic subjugated people. Because usually that doesn't last very long. I think the longest slave regime that lasted was the Ottoman Empire, 1,000 years, and they had to do shit like give the slaves vizier positions for it to last that long. But women, yeah, they're just content being slaves for all of human history. Never won one fucking rebellion until feminism. But that's only because men did. I don't know. They did something tricky.
It's because they didn't have any female role models, Alison. They didn't have any female role models to emulate. They didn't have I don't know, the legend of the Amazons or anything like that, or the women on the island of Lesbos tearing apart in Bacchus, and they didn't have any female role models at all.
Okay, so essentially patriarchy has reigned supreme throughout history, making women the most subjugated class throughout history, but not because women were inferior. No, they were victims, but they were not inferior. They were always better than men in almost every conceivable way, or at least equal in almost every conceivable way, but men managed to subjugate them in the most profound subjugation throughout history without even any rebellion, by accident.
Because penis.
Because penis. All right.
So when I see men playing the victim card, I'm amazed.
Yes, I'm sure it is amazing because it's never been done before. This is the first time in human history anybody has conceived of the idea that wait, maybe men suffer because they're men.
But is that the victim card? Do we call it the victim card when people just say that there are problems? I thought we use that term when it's overused. When you see it too often and it becomes difficult to determine when something is genuine from when something is just trivial.
It's very often a response to, because we do argue with feminists a lot, and their argument is almost always, look at this area in which women are uniquely victimized. You can call that the victim card if you like. It's a victim fucking folder, if you like. And then the response often from MRAs is, well, actually, men are also victims in this area. and that's considered the victim card to follow an argument with the corresponding argument. Because when women do it, it's their job, and when men do it, it's some kind of fucking gold card or whatever.
Yeah, well, when women do it, it's accepted. Like, and that's the thing. I mean, how is it a victim card when we say, no, actually men and women are equal victims of this issue? We're not saying that men are more victims of this, or some issues men are more victims of, but for the most part, like domestic violence, we're not saying that men are majority victims and it's all matriarchal violence to keep men in line. We're not saying these things. So how is it, like you were saying, Mike, how is that a victim card to give context and actually explain that one group of people isn't the greatest victim?
No,
that's the point.
What it is you're stealing their victim card.
Patriarchy. It's everywhere you want to be.
We're not allowed a victim card. Well, women have a victim card, and it's called the woman card.
Yeah, because woman equals victim. But, challenging that is a regressive notion. We're promoting traditional gender roles by challenging the idea that women are not necessarily defined by victimhood and men actually are victims sometimes. Even because they're men.
You might as well just fucking take off your shoes, throw them in the trash, get yourself good and barefoot, put on a sundress, knock yourself up. I think Jonathan might have to help. And,
hey, I'm a strong, independent woman. I don't need no man to knock me up.
And just get making the fucking sandwiches, bitch.
I think that Jonathan would not appreciate that.
Oh yeah,
he's actually really possessive of the kitchen.
Yeah, no, he's the resident cook, and but.
Yeah, I mean, I could make myself a sandwich, but
we're so regressive that it's just like, yeah, no, it's. I don't understand. It really is. It's sort of like that. It's like that hate that they had on for Margaret Thatcher, right? The feminists. Mike will remember this, and I don't care whether you agree with Margaret Thatcher's politics or not, right? But there's no arguing against the fact that she got there. I mean, she was the daughter of a guy who owned a couple of grocery stores. I mean, she wasn't particularly rich. She worked her way up through politics. She became the prime minister of the fucking Great Britain, right? And it's like, and she was there for a long fucking time, and she was totally fucking badass. Even just watching her handle questions in question period was like, it was a delight. That and feminists hated her, just fucking hated her, because she wouldn't say, oh, and I owe everything to the feminist movement and the sisterhood. No,
so she was standing up above the glass ceiling, like several stories above the glass ceiling, and all the feminists are going, and she's going, there's no glass ceiling, guys, look. I'm several stories over it. There's nothing there. You're fucking lying.
Yeah.
So no wonder they hate her.
Yeah.
There's another woman that's in Parliament or was involved with a talk at Oxford or something that was like I believe she was a government person that was more recently talking about feminism, and she has a great speech where
her talk was called it was a debate. It was an Oxford Union debate that was called "We Are All Feminists Now," and I forget. Fuck, what was her name?
I'll find it.
Yeah, but if you just look up Oxford Union, "We Are All Feminists Now," yeah, you'll find it. And yeah, no, she was actually she just sort of. You could tell she was comfortable in a masculine space.
All right, I'm gonna actually let it play for a while, so take notes, because we're 1 minute and 20 seconds in, and we're over an hour. This is gonna be like a 9-hour cast, and as much as I think our audience loves us, we'll probably end up just having like 2 people at the end listening. So.
Oh, Edwina Curry. That's it. That was her name. Look her up. Lori Penny is in that panel too.
Amazed. It's like bankers whining about not earning enough, or buy-to-let landlords carping about the removal of tax relief. If you're in a privileged position and you start moaning about how hard you have it, you look like a crybaby. And yet on social media, I see this all the time. largely from groups and individuals who turn themselves.
Okay, I said I was going to go far, and I lied. Did you see that this is a callback to what I was saying? He just essentially made all oppression male, female, and he's ignoring the fact that men are also handicapped. They're also not white. They are also poor. Like,
There are no non-white, non-wealthy, non-straight, non-cis, non-privileged men, Alison, don't you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and if there were, a men's movement wouldn't be able to help them at all. So.
Yeah.
Individuals who turn themselves men's rights activists. Over the last few days, we've had.
Remember, folks, if you're in the vicinity of a men's rights activist, what repels them and prevents them from doing their harm are strong female characters.
Is chocolate cupcakes with homemade buttercream icing.
Yes.
Just saying, if it's a men's rights activist with big boobs and short hair, a chocolate cupcake with homemade buttercream frosting will deter me.
And booze.
Yes.
I've got short hair and big tits as well. It's good. It's all good.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with a steak. Steak will work with me. So yeah, you know, if you see one of us, remember, don't listen to us because we're crazy, and be sure to bring along your garlic, your sunlight somehow, and some silver bullets, and also strong female characters. If you have copies of Buffy comics, that works to repel men's rights activists.
And chocolate cupcakes.
And chocolate cupcakes. You can, if you encounter a species of Karen Straughan, you can throw a cupcake at her, and that'll repel her. So just for your information.
It won't repel me. It'll just keep me busy for like a few seconds.
Okay.
Quite a bit about Muirfield Golf Club. Back in March, we had International Women's Day. The MRA responses to that were predictable. Some whined, why is there no International Men's Day?
There is.
There is. Most men's rights activists know that there is an International Men's Day. I'm not sure what men's rights activists you're talking about, but okay.
No, it was the trolls that went after the dude who played Finn in the new Star Wars.
For fuck's sake.
Yeah, and they were, you know, a lot of them were calling him, you know, traitor because he left some nice comment about women on International Women's Day, and a bunch of trolls called him a traitor, you know.
Can we use the paper standard? If they don't call themselves MRAs, if they don't have to admit that they, or not admit, but clarify that they talk about men's rights issues on their trademark process, or they don't have any goddamn paperwork, then maybe they aren't MRAs. And if they do, maybe you could actually correctly identify the ones of us who are MRAs and talk to us about what we actually think. Because we know that there's an International Men's Day.
Yeah.
Most of us.
November 19th.
Yeah.
It's sexist. Others tried to link IWD to men killing themselves. We are living in an anti-men society. Happy Women's Day, dramatic rise in male suicide, ? End quote.
Where did that happen?
Well, there was one university in the UK that canceled. They decided they were going to cancel their International Men's Day.
It was York, I think.
Yeah, they were going to have a walk or something, or some kind of something to commemorate it.
No, York, the University of York. Sorry.
Yeah, but I think that was what it was, and they were gonna do something, right? And feminists objected to it, so the university canceled it. And the day before International Men's Day, I think it was the day that they canceled it, one of their male students committed suicide. Right?
That would have been all over everything if it had been the reverse.
I don't necessarily think that the guy committed suicide because International Men's Day was canceled. It might have factored into his despondency. I mean, I'm sure he was already like on the verge, and then it's like, well, fuck, nobody cares about men. Maybe that played into it. And then that sent him over. Like that was the little last straw, the little tiny little nudge. But I don't think that it was, you know, like, oh, canceling International Men's Day causes mass suicides, or I don't think anybody's claiming that. But the fact that they canceled International Men's Day, the International Men's Day celebration, the day that was occurring the day after one of their male students committed suicide, and this is one of the issues that Philip Davies wanted to talk about in Parliament on International Men's Day, right? And it's the leading cause of death in the UK for men under age from age 18 to 49, I believe. And so I mean, like, it kills more men than any other cause for men under 50, adult men under 50. That's a big fucking problem, right? And people want to set aside one day a year to talk about shit like that, and no, you can't, because feminists don't like it.
Anyway, so vile. I needed a shower after reading them.
Well, you wouldn't be playing the victim there, would you, Sonny? There's only three things to do in the shower: wash yourself, or do something sexual, or wash away some kind of feeling of victimization, I believe. So what are you doing?
I don't know. Today I was in the shower pulling out a hairy clog.
Mike, is it weird responding to yourself in a video?
I'm looking at the article rather than I'm reading sort of the article, right? So I'm not looking at the Codger. Plus, I recorded that on Monday, so I've already forgotten.
Okay, let's get a little bit further in, guys.
What they all had in common, though, was that they were all utterly ridiculous. Seriously. Men's suicide is problem. Absolutely.
Still there. 3 days later, they haven't fucking fixed the typo. Still
They
there.
have to put in the A.
Thanks for your concern, guys. Oh, man.
Oh my god, they found the true weakness of the men's rights movement. Fucking typos and improper grammar.
Yeah, well.
It's even underlined. It's because it's a link. But that fucking sentence is even underlined. As if they're doing it on purpose. As if to say, yeah, duh, men's suicide is problem. Huh? Absolutely. Fuck you so hard.
But it has nothing to do with International Women's Day, and no, we don't need an International Men's Day.
We have one.
Yeah.
Is it, what?
Why? Because in the UK, which is one of the...
How is this? This is like a journalism failure.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
I think this is an opinion piece, though, right?
All he needed to do was Google International Men's Day. Just Google it, and you'll come up with some articles.
Google is institutional, Karen.
And you'll come up with the Wikipedia entry, and you'll find out that it was instituted in the first half of the 20th century, and then it kind of fell out of fashion. And people lost interest, and then they reinstated it in the 90s, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
World's most equal gender countries outside Scandinavia, women earn 24% less than men on average. Perhaps you don't think that's a big...
The world's most equal countries are in Scandinavia, are they? I think I can see where what you consider to be normal. This is what people keep calling the Norwegian paradox of the when there's true gender parity, women become nurses and men go into STEM. There's true gender parity in Norway. Yeah, if that's what you consider to be zero, then I'm not going to trust any of your results.
No, because actually other countries that are less equal actually have a lower wage gap. And he doesn't mention this. And he doesn't ask, well, why is that so?
Well, this is the thing. This is the thing that always gets me, is this idea that the wage gap is a fucking problem. I don't think it's a fucking problem. I think maybe it's caused by things that are problems, but I don't think it in itself is a fucking problem. And so if the wage gap is created by people making the choices that they want to make with their lives, right? Even if they're not the exact choices that they would have made if they weren't in a partnership, because I'm sorry, you get into a partnership, you freaking have, you get married, you have kids, you know what, you're not going to be doing everything the way you did it when you were single and and all of your money was yours, right? That's just not going to work. It's not going to happen, right? Now, you have to actually ask yourself if there's an injustice going on there. And if there's an injustice going on there, I would say that the biggest of the injustices of the wage gap, the biggest injustice that's feeding the wage gap and causing it is the way custody is dealt with after divorce, and the way alimony and child support are dealt with after divorce. Because, you know, none of that child support and none of that alimony is being included in working women's freaking year-round median income. That's not included, right? And it's not even taxed. She doesn't have to pay taxes on it, right? She gets her $800 a month, right? Tax-free. He had to earn $1,000 to pay her that $800 a month that she's not paying any taxes on.
Deal, but I do. It tells me that women still get a raw deal compared to men.
Spending gap.
What's more, in countries outside the developed world, they get a deal that often borders on the medieval. And that is brokered entirely by men.
This is why women's rights advocates in the third world hate talking to feminists. This kind of bullshit.
Yeah, it's usually not until a country gets to the point where they have like a burgeoning middle class, like India, before they start going like whole hog on feminism and they start drinking the Kool-Aid, and it's because they don't need their men. You know, they don't need them the way they used to, and because they're not poor like they were. They might be poor compared to us, but they're not poor like they were, and then they start to pull all of this fucking Declaration of Sentiments bullshit and men oppress women bullshit and marriage as an institution of patriarchal oppression of women bullshit and all of this stuff. Even though marriage was created to ensure that when a man had sex with a woman, okay, and made children with her, right? Marriage was there to force him to support her long after he would have rather just taken her in and traded her for a newer model.
Yeah. Now the other thing is that if all of the women in the third world became men, they would be 3 times more likely to die violently. Now, whatever you want to say about the laws or the situation, that's an advantage. I don't know, you know,
Yeah,
if it
not
was entirely
dying.
if it was entirely brokered by men, then men are idiots.
Yeah, no, and you look at the sort of that I'm going to bring it up yet again. The documentary I watched on the shipbreaking yard, and you know, in shipbreaking yards in Bangladesh, and it's one of the most dangerous occupations you can do, and they do it without safety equipment. They do it in their bare feet or in flip-flops with no helmets, no hard hats, no nothing, right? And they just rip apart these old condemned ships and sell the metal for scrap. That's what they do. There's this 15-year-old boy, and he's in Bangladesh, child labor is illegal. You can't work unless you're over 18. But you know, he lied about his age to get in there because his father's dead, right? And he has a mother and sisters to pay for, to look after. He's the man of the house. He's the head of the household now. It's his responsibility to support all of these women and girls, right? And so he goes to work every fucking day in the same fucking job that killed his dad, right? And then they talk to this other family, right? It's a mother and 2 daughters, and they've just buried dad, right, who was killed in the yard, and the daughters are saying, we don't know what we're gonna do. We don't have a father anymore, and we don't have a brother to take care of us. You know, so what are we going to do? And they have no idea how they're gonna fucking keep a roof over their heads, right? Because they don't have a man to go and work that job and then come home, right? And I'm sorry, but if any feminist went up to one of these young women and said, okay, well, here's the thing. I'm going to give you total equality, right? And you won't have to, like, put a plate of chickpeas and rice on the fucking table for your brother or your father when he gets home. You won't have to serve him like chattel, right? You won't have to treat him like the king of the house, right? Okay? And all you have to do is go work in the shipbreaking yard. How many of those fucking women do you think would jump at that?
Yeah, it does seem to be that feminism comes in when there's a critical mass of jobs where men go and they sit at a desk in an air-conditioned office, and they think and they cogitate, or they move paper, or they do some accounting and other stuff like that. Doesn't seem to be in countries where men have to go break down ships and get killed in the process. And it also doesn't seem to be in the areas of the country, for example, where I live, where my husband, when he was younger, was in a job that, he experienced a workplace accident in which a mainframe, and if you don't know what a mainframe is, it's like the big tractor cab thing with a window, and it came off of its railing. It came off of its track. So this is like a couple tons of metal, and it nearly fell on him, but just by pure accident. He was in the cab. The cabs have windows. He was in the area where the window was, so it fell around him by accident. Like, this is like a 2-ton solid, like, metal block, and he just happened to be where the window was, so he wasn't crushed to death. And in this area, there isn't a lot of feminism.
It's not just the important stuff either. Witness the misogynistic howls over the latest Ghostbusters film. Yes.
I remember howling. Meh.
Hollywood had the sheer gall.
Didn't we agree, like you, me, and Mike, didn't we sort of agree, like, I don't really hate them.
We couldn't find much to whinge about. Even the shittiest trailer out there.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I mean, I guess I don't hate it because I didn't have any nostalgia for the original, but
if it goes out on Netflix, I might watch it.
Yeah, probably me too.
The barefaced cheek to remake an 1980s comedy with an all-female cast. I mean, seriously, who cares? In fact, given Tinseltown's zeal for tediously recycling so 80s pop culture, I'd say that using women instead of men counts as real originality. But not everyone is as easily pleased as me.
Replacing the men with women is real originality?
As one men's blogger wrote, like the proverbial kid sister who would fume at the fact that her brother and his friends would lock her out of the male-only clubhouse. The feminists and their men join her
the male-only clubhouse thing. There's a fucking abstract metaphysical version of that male-only clubhouse, fella. If Alison or Karen were to ask you, hey, are we equal citizens to you? Do we have all the same privileges? You'll go, no, of course you don't. You'll never have the same privileges as me, because I'm a man. What's that other than you not letting them in the big fucking patriarchal clubhouse in the sky?
Oh,
that's what that is.
That's beautiful.
There is one brick and mortar all-male clubhouse. It's called a prison, and there's a lot of people there.
Men. All of them.
Men,
yeah,
yes.
No,
except for the women who are preying on them sexually, of course.
Brian, that's called subsidized housing for men who can't afford the children.
That's right.
Yeah.
Voices in the media once again demonstrate their need to forcibly intrude upon any perceived male bastions.
What? Wait a second. Did they say the media? Oh, he's saying the media wants to intrude. No, they just want to create crap and get people to buy it, and then if you don't buy it, they shame you by saying you're a misogynist.
No, they remade a film and did it differently, but well done for using the word mangina.
Meh. Well, I mean, mangina. I mean, you have manspreading and mansplaining. Like, what's the problem there? I mean, it's not like you guys don't use the word man and apply it to something and make it bad.
If you want more of this sort of stuff, And believe me, there's plenty. Just go and find any online men's rights discussion.
Okay, where do you think men's rights discussion takes place?
Reddit's infamous The Red Pill forum is a good place to start.
Beautiful.
Oh, for fuck's sake! Could you? This is okay. This is what I said when they pointed to red pill, like some some internet random. I mean, they jumped way over Honey Badger Radio. Didn't talk to any of the female men's rights activists who actively call themselves men's rights activists, fundraise to do men's rights activism in the real world or advocacy in the real world, and have a much bigger platform than a random commentator on Red Pill Ladies. Okay, you guys, I don't have anything against you, but you don't have a profile. You're just commentators on a Reddit forum. Jump way past Honey Badger Radio to talk to some random in a Reddit forum, and now they won't even mention that there's a men's rights Reddit. I mean, this is men's rights. Activists are deluded, and there is a men's rights Reddit labeled men's rights, and he doesn't even refer to it. At least he seems to be referring to Red Pill game or Red Pillar, the Red Pill subreddit first. So maybe he does eventually refer to the men's rights Reddit. I don't remember. Does he?
I don't fucking remember either. Probably not. But
this
no.
is like the most unmemorable. But what I'm saying is that Red Pill is what these guys want men's rights activists to be. And Red Pill Ladies is what they want and hope female men's rights activists are.
Yeah,
that's why the media goes to them. Because that's who they want to portray.
He's not acknowledging the existence of female MRAs, and nowhere in this is that even possible.
And dive in. The misogyny is lovely at this time of year, but it's also baffling. If we take any group of people, from slum dwellers in Koltaka to plutocrats on Wall Street, men have it better than women.
Actually,
how many times do I have to repeat this?
Slum dwellers? Slum-dwelling men have it better than women? In what fucking universe? They're like 10 times more likely to be sleeping rough.
Hell, I mean, you could
have a stranger bring them into their house and let them sleep on the couch. Because, inviting a stranger into your house, you're going to be a lot more likely to do that if it's a woman than if it's a man. Especially if they smell like pee.
I mean, we don't even have to go to Calcutta. I'm just look at for example, use an example from the my husband's family. While my husband was working with neurotoxins without proper safety equipment, because the safety codes of Canada have been essentially, like they're not really enforced out here, and almost dying in an industrial accident, his sister was raising a kid at home. Are you going to say that she's more oppressed? Of course you are. But she wasn't earning as much as he was, even though she had access to more money because her husband was earning more. And you're going to say that in that situation my husband was, even though at the end of the day he has a disability that he lives with because of the situation that he was in, that he was privileged.
Semantics, really. Alison, semantics. He earned more money than his sister.
Stories where that came from. There's more stories where that came from.
Yeah.
For every woman you think is being treated like chattel at home, there's a man or a boy breaking down ships in a dock, like Karen was saying.
Chattel!
Chattel!
Literally chattel!
Literally! Like 100 years ago or so ago.
Literally chattel! Or, like Onision said, literally cattle. He did. He said cattle.
Lol cows.
Yes. Also, if director Paul Feig casting a girl instead of Bill Murray is enough to poison your precious childhood memories, you need to grow up and probably man up too.
Is this what you said after Phantom Menace?
Well, I'm just wondering, like, what about getting upset or saying that for example, there's a feminist comics Kate Left who got upset because Harley Quinn was made a little sexy in a comic book, and says that basically her childhood is ruined because of it. Huh. I
Yeah,
guess
I
that doesn't apply.
I know it doesn't. It doesn't apply. That's not whining. That's actually a legitimate issue, Allison.
Mm-hmm.
No, yeah, that's super
None of this
legit.
means that men
Sorry, guys. Let me just go back a bit.
man up too. None of this means that men
What the fuck? Oh my god, wait, did he just use the phrase man up?
direct
That's
to Paul
enough to
Feig.
poison.
It
Yeah.
comes to a girl
Okay, let him say it.
instead of Bill Murray is enough to poison your precious childhood memories. You need to grow up and probably man up too.
I
Okay,
think he's
so
being
you're saying
funny. I think he's doing it on purpose.
yeah, but okay, if it's comedic, but the thing is that man up presumes that men are expected to attain a level of maturity that women are not. Who's that sexist towards? Let's move on.
None of this means that men don't have issues or need help. We've already mentioned our high suicide rate. Another problem is that boys, particularly working-class boys, underachieve at school. Then there's decline of high-quality, well-paid manufacturing jobs of the sort that many men used to go into. These problems need addressing, but they have nothing to do with rights.
And none of the actual inequalities in law are addressed in this at all. No, let's just gloss over those entirely.
Suicide is a mental health issue. And if you take the destruction of quality jobs, that's an economic change. The one which was largely driven by other men.
Oh, it's not even victim blaming. It's the victim perpetrator equivalence.
Yep.
Great.
And it's just to evade the feeling of being vulnerable. That's it.
Yeah.
To blame someone for our not having a manufacturing base like Germany's, blame rich white men, not Guardian
Like they have in
reading
Germany.
Yeah, it's because in Germany, there are no rich white men controlling the economy. Huh. Okay.
Yeah, no, like the whole reason why Germany has that, and I hate to say this, the whole reason why Germany has that strong base of industrialist, like that super work ethic and everything, that's like all remnants from like 1930 onward, like 1928 onward. It's all stuff that came about because it had to come about due to the Treaty of Versailles, right? Like their economy was fucking destroyed. Absolutely, this is why we did things differently after World War II, right? We bombed the shit out of Japan, then we went in and helped them rebuild shit, right? And helped them get back on their feet, right? So that we wouldn't have another fucking Germany, right? But some of that work ethic, some of that sort of industrial, push to be excellent and all of that stuff, that's the legacy of the Treaty of Versailles. Because that's what Germany had to do to survive.
All right.
This sort of misplaced anger is a constant theme. In MRA circles, you'll hear a lot about the feminization of society, but when pressed on specifics, MRAs either dissemble or offer up examples where women are moving towards the same deal men have enjoyed for years.
What? So women are expected to go out and risk life and limb to pay for men, and it isn't the feminization of society. I think mostly we talk about gynocentrism, which is the prioritization of the provisioning and protection of women.
Yeah, but the expectation of women that that they pay for their own fucking kids, that they share their kids with the other parent, that they, that they contribute equally to a household, that they look after themselves, that they protect themselves, that they see to their own safety, that they, pay their own fucking way in life.
It's not that we begrudge women, occupying the same deal as men. That's exactly what we want them to. Well, to within reason, I suppose. We want them to have exactly the same deal as men, which is none. Or maybe we want men and women to meet in the middle. That might be better, or something like that. But it's not like we're saying that, women should. I don't even know what the fuck this guy.
Yes. You do start to wonder if it's all just nostalgia for a time when boys ruled the world without...
When did that happen? Like, 'cause boys have mothers, and mothers generally rule boys. As far as I can tell from my observations of boys and mothers in their natural habitats. The power differential seems to be going one way in favor of the woman.
Yeah, no. There's been plenty of studies that have shown that sexist attitudes are picked up by children primarily from their mothers, and of course they are. Not because I don't know that it's because mothers are more sexist than fathers, but because mothers are the primary caregivers still, and so they're the ones that do the sort of do a more sort of day-to-day, moment-to-moment modeling of cultural values to their kids. So yeah.
Having to try.
Without even having to try. I don't want to have to pull the etymology card, but what he said there is nostalgia for a time when boys ruled the world without having to try. Let's remind ourselves that boys means slaves. And yeah, it harks back to like, yeah, I'm more likely to be a CEO thanks to my dick. Hooray!
No, boys actually means servant. So what he said is that we remind us of a time when servants ruled the world. Which is actually interesting. Without having to try.
Without having to serve, essentially.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
There's plenty more that doesn't stand up to scrutiny. For all the chatter about the injustice of false rape accusations, a CPS survey showed that in a 17-month period in 2011 and 2012, UK authorities prosecuted 35 people for making false rape allegations, but brought 5,651 prosecutions for rape.
I know, and that couldn't have anything to do with the system's unwillingness to prosecute false allegations, right? Okay, because one of the false allegations that I seem to recall reading about having been prosecuted in the UK was a woman who was prosecuted after making her 11th fucking false rape accusation. 11 fucking false rape accusations. And finally, there's the political will to actually prosecute her. Okay? Now, can you imagine any universe in which a man committed rape 11 times, and the first 10 times it's like, oh yeah, I totally fucking did that. Oh yeah, they're like, we're just not going to prosecute. We don't want to, create a chilling effect. We don't want to make it, make it hard for some people, right? And so we're just gonna let it slide this time. And then the next day he's back in there. Oh yeah, no, I totally fucking raped that bitch, right? And they're like, oh, it's only been twice, right? So we'll just let it go for now, and then finally after 11 fucking times they're like, okay, I guess we really kind of have to do something about this, because
him saying he's not going to do it again isn't cutting it.
Yeah, and so I'm sorry, but your point about 5,000 fucking prosecutions for rape, some of those were false accusations, I guarantee it, right? And only 30-something for false accusations. Yeah, no, prosecutors have discretion. Prosecutors get to decide what cases they pursue and what cases they don't, right? That's the prosecutor's job. If the prosecutor has a bias and thinks that rape is a horrible, evil, horrible, awful crime, and any hint that any man might have possibly done it and they could possibly win the case, they're going to move forward with it. But, they have evidence sitting in their fucking lap, incontroversial fucking evidence, and this has happened time and time again all across the West, incontrovertible evidence that the complainant was lying through her teeth, right? Oh yeah, well, we don't really, it's not really in the public interest to prosecute that, right? Oh, that was the excuse they made for Crystal Mangum. And then, a year later she almost burned her fucking apartment down with her kid inside because she was mad at her boyfriend, and then a year after that she stabbed another boyfriend to death, right? I mean, I wonder how things would be different If only she'd been prosecuted for that massive fucking false rape accusation she made against the Duke lacrosse team.
Moreover, rape is a very under-prosecuted crime.
No, it's under-reported.
And then there's
It's not under-prosecuted. It's actually prosecuted. The number of reports that go to prosecutions is comparable with all other crimes. And its under-reporting rate is also comparable with most other crimes.
But for 5,651 prosecutions for rape. Moreover, rape is very under-prosecuted crime.
Another typo.
And then there's all the really stupid stuff. A common refrain is that men are treated as a dumb joke in the popular media. But honestly, even Homer Simpson holds down a job while Marge stays at home with the kids. Seriously, is the gender-based degradation of Homer really the place you want to make your stand?
What are you saying about women who stay at home with the kids here?
Yeah.
That's the worst thing he could thought of saying about Marge Simpson.
I fucking stayed at home with my kids. Asshole.
I don't know what the hell he's trying to say there, but...
The other great issue with men's rights groups is that even when they start out with goodish intentions, they rarely stay that way. They tend to attract extremists, and before you know it, you've got Gamergate on your hands.
Oh my god.
Don't have time. Don't have time for that shit. Move on.
No, seriously.
That movement that literally was calling for female genocide. Gamergate was just like, in order to save the Earth and the Earth's ecology, we must reduce the population of females down to 10%.
Okay.
That's
Guys?
what Gamergate was all about. Oh wait, no. It was Mary Daly and it was men that she wanted to call.
Okay. Obviously, men's rights activists are like little bits of donut sprinkles all over the floor. And you know what that attracts, right? You know what? That's how you get ants. Or rather, that's how you get Gamergaters. Is you leave all of your men's rights donut sprinkles all over the floor.
Danger zone.
Why are you talking about like baked goods? And why is it a donut and not a cupcake?
Because ducknates have sprinkles. Well, I
Maybe-
guess no. Donuts have sprinkles.
Maybe it's a cake donut.
Yes, it could be.
Okay.
Of course, like all movements with unacceptable fringe members, MRAs tend to fall back on the no true Scotsman argument.
Oh,
There's-
oh my God. Mary Daly was a true feminist. She only taught feminist philosophy at Boston College in her position as a tenured professor, right? Yeah, but she was no true feminist, right? Oh, but they waited till she was dead and her body was cold before they posthumously excommunicated her, right?
Okay, and might I point out, once again, a paper trail. Women's studies departments, no doubt, paid this woman. There was stamping. There was an institution involved. If you can find that kind of evidence to link a person to the men's rights movement, hell, even just, with for example, the Elliot Rodger, which is probably what you're referencing. You know, if you could find anything to actually link us, like, was he, nothing, you found nothing. All he did was post an anti-pickup artist forum. That's as close as you could get.
He wrote a fucking 8,000-word manifesto that didn't include the words feminism or MRA or men's rights or MRM or men's rights activists, nothing.
Or any men's rights causes, as far as I know. And the thing is that this is not a no true Scotsman situation. This is you asserting that somebody who has lived their entire life in the jungles of the Amazon, is a Scotsman because he or she once wove a basket that included more than 2 colors. And it's sort of tartan.
We had this with War Machine. You remember War Machine? He was like that frickin' MMA fighter or something who like caught his girlfriend cheating with some other guy and beat the shit out of both of them. And of course, the only one who really got any attention. Nobody even knows the name of the guy he beat up. Beat the shit out of him and kicked him out, and then beat the shit out of her, and went to prison for it. And then he started talking about how white men are like the most oppressed group in society, right? To his cellmates or whatever. Or he had talked about it to other people in the past, and so all of a sudden he was an MRA, and it's like I don't. There's no like okay he voiced an opinion that coincides with, with sort of with at least what you think our opinion is, right? And but there's no evidence that he was in contact with any men's rights organization, that he read any men's rights websites. He didn't talk about any other men's rights issues. He just said, white guys are the most oppressed people in society these days or some shit.
I don't think he even said white. He just said men, which, to be honest, is something Malcolm X might have said. So if you'd found a passage where Malcolm X said, yeah, no one's been oppressed in history more than men, might have been talking about black men, but if he'd phrased it like that, you wouldn't say, look, that makes Malcolm X a men's rights advocate. Even though he did advocate for the rights of men in quite a significant way. You wouldn't attach that label to him, would you? Because he's one of the good guys.
Yeah, no, and it's like I'm just like I'm blown away by this too. Like George Sedini attended one pickup artist seminar, right, and then went off his fucking rocker and shot a bunch of women, and yeah, all of a sudden he's an MRA because he attended a seminar in the months before he did that, aimed at trying to be. It couldn't have been the fucking 20 years in which he was trying to succeed with women and couldn't even fucking get laid, right? Like, couldn't even get a second date. Couldn't have been that. Couldn't have been the social isolation. It couldn't have been the fact that he just felt hopeless. Couldn't have been 20 years of fucking resentment, right? And he wasn't even a bad-looking guy, right? He looked fit, decent-looking face, the whole bit, right? Couldn't have been any of that. No, it was that like fleeting contact that he had by proxy with MRAs, right? Through some pickup artist seminar, right? The 7 degrees of separation. That's close enough. He was an MRA.
Yeah, like I said, just we're not going to know true Scotsman if you can actually draw a real connection. Hell, I mean, we still have that. Well, I guess it's over now, but $6,000 for any information leading to the men's rights activist that harmed Daniel d'Etremont. That could go for I think it's a big chunk of change there. Could have gone for a great feminist cause, but no one came forward with any information.
Yeah.
All right. And there's incidentally, Dale d'Etremont is a feminist who alleges that she was attacked by a men's rights activist.
I will bet you there are other feminists who will claim that she is not a feminist because there are people who believe that she lied.
Oh, yeah, no, of course. She's not a real feminist.
Interesting argument.
No, there is no real feminist. That's the thing. There's a real men's rights activist. There's a thing that we actually do, and it's a really simple thing. There's not like we're not as complex as feminists in what we are trying to achieve. We're not making all kinds of inroads into your workplace. We're not making all kinds of inroads into your schools, into your everything, every aspect of your life. We just want to see equal consideration, and especially equal legal consideration for the human rights of men and boys. We don't have to have a complex theory for that. It's real simple. If something is a human right, it's a human right for men and boys as well as it is for women and girls. There's no gender difference. But when you look at feminists, they have all kinds of rules and all kinds of little things that they have all kinds of little details, microaggressions, manspreading, male gaze, and they make all kinds of extra rules, adding plus power to definitions of things in order to justify hating a group of people and acting on that hate, rather than simply dealing with people as they are and fighting for true equality. And here you have a group that looks at the founding mothers of their theories, like rape culture theory and Mary Koss, and as soon as they learn that she's done something atrocious, that she's actually, through informing government policy, gotten it so that the United States government, and then following the United States government, the UN and other governments around the world are building a body of falsified evidence based on denying that it's rape when sex is forced, unwanted sex is forced on a man by a woman or a boy by a woman or girl. When they find out about that, they'll continue to use her statistics, they'll continue to use Koss's statistics, they'll continue to use Koss's methodology, but they'll deny that she's a feminist. They'll deny that Gloria Steinem is a feminist when they find out that she promoted Koss's work. So, like, when it comes to no true Scotsman, feminists have the market cornered. They'll brag about the suffragettes, but when you talk about the ones that were racist, well, those weren't real feminists, those weren't real suffragettes, they don't represent us. Talk about the white ribbon movement, or I'm sorry, the white feather movement, you get the same thing. Oh, well, those weren't real feminists, those weren't real suffragettes. Yeah, they were. They were involved, they were part of the group, they were part of the organization. But as soon as they want to criticize somebody, as soon as they want to demonize somebody, or as soon as somebody is useful for demonizing us, that person becomes an MRA. If they think they can bring that person down by associating them with us, that person becomes an MRA. If they think they can bring us down by association, that person becomes an MRA. They don't have to have any connection. It's not really about whether or not the individual is an MRA. It's not even about whether or not they disagree with the person's behavior, the person's philosophy or theories or anything. It's about dictating what can be talked about, what can be advocated, what is right and wrong for people, and using associations that are completely false to silence one group or another.
Some of them may have been.
I'm just going to give it a little bit of room, and then we'll go back to the Codger.
No, we should really change it from no true Scotsman to no true feminist, because the Scots aren't that bad, like, at all. Even as far as nations go. I don't know why we still call it.
The Scots are horrible. They're horrible. They created good fella.
The pathetic trash that was ever shot into civilization.
Oh my
They make
God.
terrible hamburgers.
Any
They were
society,
good in the 80s, but not anymore.
any society that could create good fella is a bad society.
All right.
A 3 AD society.
Terrible. He doesn't even like root beer candy. What the fuck?
I'm like looking at the bar, and it's like we're so close.
That's completely alien, not liking root beer candy.
Yeah, no, he was just like, ooh, he spit it out, I think, into a napkin.
How can you not like root beer?
No, root beer candy.
Well, but it tastes like root beer, so he must not like root beer.
I think he just said he didn't mind root beer so much, but he didn't like the candy.
Okay, well, he can remain.
Okay.
There we go.
Yes,
That's a good
some of
compromise.
them may have been making rape jokes and calling feminists whores, but that's not what we really like. I feel bad.
What the fuck? Why
What
do you
comedians are really like. You just described at least half of all comedians.
Oh my God! Like honestly, I don't call feminist whores. I call them cunts. Okay, so please get it right, Alex Proud. Also, I make rape jokes because rape jokes can be funny.
There are so many people who make them. Like, even feminists make them.
Yeah,
Oh,
feminists
why-
do make them.
I actually saw Lindy West on some fucking show. It was like some freaking show. She was against, pitted against on a panel, like a one-on-one with a moderator, right? Debate. over rape jokes and rape culture, and it was after the Tosh Daniel Tosh incident, and she was arguing that rape jokes are never okay, blah blah blah, and then somebody made one of the moderator or the other guy made a little bit of a quip about rape, and she giggled, and then she added to the quip about rape and giggled some more, and it's like I've seen fucking what's his name, Peasy Myers make rape jokes, and people like Rebecca Watson giggle about them, right? I mean, it's like I'm sorry, but like
we may make rape jokes, but we don't categorically write out women as victims of rape. So,
yeah, and we don't. We actually take rape seriously when it's actually rape and not a joke.
Yeah, sorry about the slapping. I'm like killing mosquitoes.
I thought you were hitting your husband, actually. Oh my God, that was a domestic violence joke. I'm so bad.
Apples and all that. But honestly, I think it is what a lot of you are really like. At best, you're misinformed enough to believe that men are victims. At worst, you're misogynists and rape threat trolls hiding behind keyboards. Ultimately, it all comes back to the idea that men's rights are somehow under threat from others, and that's just offensive.
Men's rights aren't under threat from others. Men actually would have to get certain rights in order for those rights to be under threat. Kind of like
have them at all ever.
Kind of like the whole abortion thing in the U.S. is like it's about cutting back a women's rights, pushing back against women's right to abortion, right? Like they have the right, and there are groups that want to take some of that right away, right? No. Men aren't in that position, right? Because they don't actually have the rights, right? They don't actually fucking have reproductive rights. So their rights aren't under attack. Their rights aren't under threats because they don't fucking have them.
Honestly, I think it's kind of inaccurate to call abortion a right. That falls more under the privilege category because it's something that you get to make a choice on something that you wouldn't normally be able to do if it weren't for the capability behind medical science. You wouldn't be able to do it medically. You'd end up doing it like women did in the dark ages of not coat hangers but poisons. Women used to use poisons and things like that. So I would go ahead and call that a privilege, and it's especially a privilege considering the fact that not only do men not have that right, they don't even have a right to an alternate equivalent. And in fact, not only do they not have the right to an alternate equivalent, if they try to have something like an alternate equivalent, they are perceived to be wronging the woman who put them in that position. So they're not just without a right, they're actually considered indebted to any woman who chooses not to have an abortion or go for an adoption or use safe haven abandonment after failing at birth control and choosing a partner that was going to do the same thing she wanted to do.
Agreed.
When we talk about women's rights, or the civil rights movement, or gay rights, what these people are asking for is equality with straight white men. They want to have the right.
Okay. So we're going to get rid of safe haven abandonment for women. We're going to get rid of adoption without the father's consent. We're going to have 50-50 shared custody, even when the father is not married to the mother, and was never married to the mother. We're going to have all kinds of, and that's going to equalize things and I'm sure women will be really, really happy with that. Oh, we're going to equalize prison sentences. We're going to make rape something that women can do to men. We're going to freaking include women in the draft. We're going to force women to be self-sufficient. Like if you can't pay for you wanted custody, but if you can't fucking pay to support your kids, well, You know what subsidized housing for men who can't support their kids looks like. You're not getting welfare. You're getting fucking jail, like the non-custodial father, because you're not responsible enough to support your fucking kids.
Guilty
Man
of
up.
neglect. You'd be guilty of neglect. That's essentially what calling a man who cannot pay child support, including when it's based on imputed income that he doesn't actually make. When you call a man a deadbeat dad, you're accusing him of neglect. So women, when you can't support your children, if you really want to be equal to straight white men, you can be accused of neglect for asking to collect child support because you can't do it. And that's fair, because men are more likely, when they have custody, they're more likely to not need you financially. They're more likely to have their own money, their own jobs. They're more likely to go out and get better jobs because they want to make sure their kids have a good life. And they're more likely to have a house instead of subsidized housing. They're more likely to be well above the poverty level. It's very rare for women to take that kind of initiative and as single moms and do what it takes to be in that position. It's not that rare when it's a man.
And I'm not even gonna say, oh, if don't ask for child support, okay, like it's half his kid. If you have custody, he doesn't want custody, okay, well, half his kid, take child support, but no welfare. Why should the government support your fucking kid?
Okay,
right?
Here's the thing. This guy went to Reddit and apparently fails at being able to do a simple search. Most people on the internet can do this. Men's rights. Because if he had done that simple search, he would have found the men's rights Reddit. Instead, he must have sought out the red pill Reddit. So either he may be that stupid, or this is deliberate stupidity, or this is deceptive. So there's no point arguing about him saying, well, men's rights activists want to go back to a world in which blah, 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 because he has no fucking clue, or he's not even willing to present men's rights activists or our opinions or men's rights advocates or our issues accurately. Either because he's too dumb to actually search properly, or because it's not in his... he doesn't want to. And I think he doesn't want to.
Yeah, no, he doesn't
want to. Suit his needs.
Yep.
Rights that I have.
Oh, wait. Just let me go back again.
Or gay rights? What these people are asking for is equality with straight white men. They want to have the rights that I have.
But none of the responsibility, none of the accountability. That's why they're advocating so hard for parity, gender parity, in the higher paid ends of STEM professions, but they're not advocating for gender parity in things like trash collection, or being the guy that changes the light bulb at the top of a radio tower, because that's dangerous and scary. They don't fight for women to be pushed into those jobs. Only men get pushed into those jobs, and it's usually, either they're interested in the income for themselves, or they take jobs like that or jobs like roofing, whatever they can get. Matt Barkley, yep, and chat mentioned roofing. That's one that a lot of guys end up in because they need the money. It's a very dangerous job. There's a very high injury rate in that, and women aren't expected to do that. You need, in fact, if a woman takes a job that is rough on her, or that she feels mistreated in or endangered in because she wants to feed her kids, she's considered a victim of society. And where a man, it's like, well, you're manning up, you're doing what you're supposed to do.
It's just expected.
You could fall and break your back and never walk again, but and then there's not really a whole lot that can be done to protect your safety while you're walking around on a slippery surface. But you got to pay those bills.
Well, okay, I just have one thing to say. If you had actually looked at anything that was actually men's rights, you'd have realized that all we want is equal rights too. But that doesn't fit your paradigm. No more, no less.
Does this mean they want to take my rights away from me? No! But they might sometimes remind me that there are a lot of things I take for granted.
Like rights.
Well, yeah.
Well, but even ones he doesn't have. He just doesn't know he doesn't have them yet.
Yeah, because he's basically the biggest veil over his lack of rights is this male identity of power that he needs to uphold. So he will cling to that over recognizing any kind of lack of rights, and he will blind himself.
He'll walk through life just thinking that everything's covered. It's all good. It's all good until he puts his foot wrong or a piano fucking lands on his head, right? And then he's going to realize that he actually doesn't have the rights that he assumed he had.
Or all he has to do is piss off the wrong woman, and she spends 7 years targeting him with malicious prosecution for which she will not be held accountable, no matter how much she lies.
Yeah, no, he just needs to have essentially a piano fall on his head, right? Like just some random fucking woman decides that, some random lunatic decides that he's stalking her. Because, I don't know, he delivers mail to her house every fucking day, right? And makes a complaint and manages to be convincing. And then, his life is not going to be easy for the next while. He argues with some woman on fucking Twitter. She makes a police complaint. He's 3 years, dragged.
Or he's the guy whose Facebook account some woman lands on when she wants to make a false accusation or falsely claim some guy as the father of her child so she can get welfare.
Yep. Yeah, and then he's not even going to know until they've started garnishing his wages.
Yep.
There's a survey here. You have 4 options. Men's rights activists. Option 1 are utterly deluded and obviously wrong. Option 2 are basically just trolls. Deep down they know it's nonsense. Option 3 do have a point, but they express it too aggressively. Option 4, have taken the red pill and know the truth. Fuck you.
So they had to, even the one that sounds the most legitimate still has to sound like tinfoil hat conspiracy theory shit.
Oh yeah, like
the most legitimate sounding one is
they're right about.
They do have a point, but they express it too aggressively.
Yeah. Which I wonder, when we criticize the violence of the suffragettes, if he would agree that they had a point, but they expressed it too aggressively. Considering that they had a habit of blowing things up and not really taking into consideration whether they were risking the safety of the people around them when they did that.
Well, and also that they weren't actually advocating for equality.
No, they were advocating for votes for rich white women.
Yeah, and none of the responsibilities that rich white men had.
Yeah,
so.
And certainly none of the responsibility that poor men had.
Sorry?
And certainly none of the responsibility.
I actually voted. I actually voted in the poll. I voted in the poll because I wanted to see what the results were. And 49% picked the 4th option, that they've taken the red pill and they speak the truth.
Interestingly, after having seen other people's results for that poll, I went and voted in it, and it told me I was the only vote. It was a very strange result to get, because I knew there had been other people voting in it, and other people had been talking about it. I tried reloading the page and everything, and it said I was the only vote. So they apparently at some point they shut it off, they stopped the vote, they reset it, whatever, so that to get rid of that result because they didn't like it.
Well, they've got about 70% of people saying that either we have a point or we're actually right, and
it's probably not what they wanted, considering the article.
No, it's really not what they wanted. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's That's the end of that article.
I just wanted to say too, right? Like that if you Google men's rights activists, right? The first hit is the Wikipedia entry, and then there's 2 other entries, and then there's the men's rights Reddit, and then there's the Rational Wiki, and then there's a couple other articles, one from Mel magazine, about the guy who apparently was an MRA but converted to feminism. And I think we did that one. And then our men's rights activists, misogynists at A Voice for Men, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, like there's the Women of the Men's Rights Movement that Vice did on us, right? You know, and these are all first-page results, right? The men's rights Reddit is the fourth, you know, like if the third if you don't include the Wikipedia. Right? So I mean it's like literally it's not hard to find us. It's really not. You know, and I don't know, I could go and look at more results and see when the red pill comes up, or the red pill.
Men's rights.
Yeah, but I don't think the red pill comes up on the Google search terms much at all. It's probably like 6 or 7 pages in.
You know, I've never particularly liked the whole red pill image. I haven't used it very often, just because it does sort of look on the surface a little bit sort of culty to do it all matrixy. But when you read this article, and you see the fucking dream world that this guy lives in, where society bounces off his chest like the speeding bullets on Superman. I behold my mighty Y chromosome and shit. And if all the red pill is something that brings you out of that state of delusion, then I'm all for it. If that's what the red pill means, then yeah, that's a thing.
That's basically what it is. It's the idea that, you know, you go through life and you're not really thinking about stuff like that. I mean, most people don't go through life thinking, how can I today consider myself a victim of something and whine about it? You know, so if you're not doing that, then you're generally not going to notice when things aren't perfect or when things are starting to get kind of bad. You're not going to notice until something happens directly to you, and you're certainly not going to know what's going on in court unless you have a courtroom experience. You know, or you watch somebody that you know have a courtroom experience, and all of a sudden you're like, why did that happen? That doesn't make any sense. How can they accept this you know, liar? How can they decide that it's assault to put your hands up to block somebody trying to hit you? You know, how can they award a woman child support based on 3 times this man's income and expect him to pay it? You know, then you start investigating, and all that's basically the process. You know, it's likened to the process that Neo went through, and that he became incrementally, due to experiences in his life, aware that there were details about the world that he had no idea of until he started getting exposed to them. And that's what being red-pilled basically is. And most people, there's no reason to look at people and be like, how could you not know this? You know, because it's been done in such a way as to keep it from the public eye. Most people in the United States, for instance, if you asked them what was the name of the domestic violence legislation, the federal domestic violence legislation that was on the books before the Violence Against Women Act, they will tell you there was none. The Violence Against Women Act was the first time that violence against women, that family violence was addressed in the United States. It was a landmark piece of legislation because there was never anything before that. And it's not true. There was a law passed in 1984 that did everything they promised the Violence Against Women Act would do, but it was gender neutral. And it didn't falsify research. It didn't fund falsification of research, and it didn't fund training gynocentric bias into court personnel and police personnel and prosecutors. And that's the change that feminists went for. They didn't go out and tell everybody, hey, this is what we're doing. They campaigned as if there was no federal address of violence against women, and that women were in danger and women were constantly being abused and nobody was doing anything about it. and they got it passed. They made it so that it would have been political suicide for politicians to not pass that. People don't know. People don't know what's in that law. If you were to ask, 100 people on the street about the funding for feminist research and the Violence Against Women Act, they would have no idea what you're talking about. If you would ask them about the training for court personnel and police and prosecutors, they would have no idea what you're talking, or they would just assume that it was fair training, that they were training them to be unbiased and considerate of both sexes' rights and so on. Then they would be shocked. Most people would be shocked to learn that these people are being taught to ignore due process and actually treat these cases as guilty until proven innocent, and even after proven innocent in some cases. So it is very much an awakening from a lack of awareness of these issues to, suddenly you start learning about all these legal issues, and the deeper you dig, it's almost like falling down the rabbit hole in Alice in Wonderland, and you start realizing it's all based on a societal attitude, that it's easy to do this because of the societal attitude. And the attitude's not evil, it's not malicious, it's not a conspiracy against men, but it's exploitable, and it's been very, very effectively exploited. And until people have a situation that wakes them up to that, no, they really are walking around in the dark. They really are essentially hooked up to something like the Matrix. And they really do become awake or unplugged or red-pilled when they get a doorway opened for them into these issues.
All right. Are we done?
Yeah, I think so.
I
think so.
I think unless you got a cupcake with real homemade buttercream.
Well, I got something even better.
What's that?
I got a letter and a shill.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to be going in half an hour, just to let everybody know.
Well, it's not going to take that long.
Okay.
All right. Cody writes, all right, fine, sheesh. Oh, yeah, actually, before I go into this, if you're not currently a patron, please send it, take a moment to ask yourself why, and consider helping us out by just sending us a letter to topic@badgerpod.com. It helps to know what you feel we need to do and accomplish in order to grow, and it's very helpful. And I'm going to read now a letter from someone who actually did become a patron. So this is a testimonial. Cody writes, all right, fine, sheesh. Alison finally broke me. Yes, Cody. That's what I do. After the constant Maytime nagging, I finally got off my ass and became a patron. It's not enough that I mostly use my phone to listen to Honey Badger Radio. In addition to the money from ads, you Badgers now have a digital pipeline connected to my wallet. I only hope you put the money into a giant pile so that Karen and Hannah can swim in it, a la Scrooge McDuck style. On a more serious note, I'm also a patron to Teal Deer. The reason why I support him is the same reason for why I'm supporting the Honey Badger Radio now. The channel is not about poning or reactions or being funny in order to get views. It's about promoting reason, evidence, logic, and trying to figure out what is true. Even in moments when I disagree with something that one of the Badger personalities has said, they make a good case for why I should reconsider. YouTube needs more people like yourselves and less screeching adults with the persona of children. It also needs more reason, truth, and evidence. Men's issues need addressing, and I think Honey Badger Radio is the best way to go about it. The precautionary tale of Earl Silverman and the funding being cut for Men UK demonstrates that the governmental aid route does not work for men. While I'm glad that organizations like the Innocent Project exist to help men, I do not see their efforts going far, without a change in the Zeitgeist at least. Sure, we can exonerate an individual. However, unless we change people's minds so that men can be seen as vulnerable, then the exonerated man will still not be able to put his life back together. The culture needs to change so that the government can change, so the lives of men and women can change. Or something like that, anyway. What can Honey Badger Radio do to improve? I can't say, to be honest. There are pros and cons to the changes. For example, if you streamline the content to be shorter, you lose the charming stories about Karen fixing her house. Keep on badgering, Cody. F. Well, thank you, Cody. I appreciate your letter, and I appreciate you finally, well, patroning us. It's good to hear that you feel like what we're doing matters. I mean, I feel like what we're doing matters, but sometimes it does feel like you're throwing stuff into a void, and nothing really will change. But
Oh, you read an article like the one today, and it's just like, oh my.
yeah, but he's just an asshat.
Yeah.
I mean, what kind of guy goes to Reddit and doesn't even manage to work out how to search?
The one with an agenda. But the thing is, our articles like that actually show that we're having an effect in a different way. They show that we have had so much of an effect that people with a political agenda that is threatened by freedom and equal recognition of human rights, regardless of gender, are scared, and they will put forth effort to demonize us.
Yeah, they have to lie now, right?
Yeah.
No, and it's like at first it was just scoffing, but now it's actual out and out, lying and it's like some of them like so that they are in the fight us stage. They seem to be very much in the like if you'll notice, like the Telegraph often has comments open. At least that's been my experience on the Telegraph. Sometimes they're hard to find, but they're there. But there were no comments open on this particular article, and this was an opinion piece. Usually, if a news organization is going to close the comments on anything, it's going to be just on a basic news piece because they don't have the time to moderate comments on everything. But on opinion articles, they generally tend to keep them open. And they did not have comments on this article.
Now, what we're seeing here, basically, I think Matt Barkley actually said it in the chat too, says this is panic. This is the edge of panic. They're realizing that they are losing control of the narrative, and they're trying desperately to get it back and grasping to try to get hold of it again or keep hold of what little of it they have.
All right. I'm going to just say a few words now. Probably not a few. More like a pile. Perhaps a small stack of words. But if I can beg a moment of your time for my small stack of words. I think there's something more here as well, even beyond men's issues. And what I'm seeing now is this push towards censorship of artists. And I spoke about this before on the last Oh My God that wasn't a top kek. Men's issues are not just vital because men need to have their issues recognized. Men's issues is the best way to disarm these pushes to censor artists. And I'll explain. I'll lay out the logic just in case you don't agree. I want to take you back to the Impressionists. When the Impressionists started, the art that they were creating was considered to be utterly scandalous, and they actually had to rent their own space to show their art. And the reason why was it was seen as something so obscene and disturbing that it was totally inappropriate for women to look at it because it was just horrifying. This is the Impressionists. And so women would go to Impressionist shows and they would faint dead away because it was just so offensive to them. And that was the justification for why the Impressionists couldn't show in the mainstream art galleries of the time. So they essentially got together and they rented a side, like a place off the beaten track, in a neighborhood that wasn't even known for art. It wasn't even particularly highbrow, but they had to find a place to show it. And they had to make the choice, too, because some of them, their art style, they could have just changed a few things, and they could have been shown in the mainstream. They could have appealed to the women who were saying their art was too horrific. And it was just so unbelievably challenging that the moment female eyes laid upon this brush strokes, this wild riots of color, they just couldn't handle it, and it was just overcome them, and it was just too much, too beyond the pale, beyond the pale of proper society. So they had to rent this run down, one room flat to have their own gallery space. Or they had to compromise their art. But here's the thing. This is exactly the narrative that's being put forward in the communities, in the communities we're seeing now. In the art, in the comics community, the games media community, writing community, every community, we have that narrative of, oh no, it's offensive to women, therefore the artists need to be censored. Now, when we bring up men's issues, when somebody starts going after artists, let's imagine saying that something hurting women, it's like a knife. It's a weapon. It's a knife in the hands of the people who seek to censor. And they use it as a weapon to threaten artists into compliance. What about the women's? We have to censor you for the sake of the women's. And it is used to not just intimidate creators into silence, and bully creators, but it's used to ignore vital issues. But there's a way to disarm the knife, and the way that you disarm the knife is what about the men's? That's why feminists can't stand it. That's why they have to mock it, because it's the way we take away their knife. And the reason why it's the way we take away their knife is because as soon as you bring male victims into the picture with an issue, people stop reacting. Their brains stop turning off and they stop reacting in a knee-jerk way. You stop creating the outrage that you direct to any kind of nefarious end. People start to think again. People start to be rational again. And they start to think about these issues in a rational sense. So, for artists and creators who are right now under wave and wave of attack by people wielding the weapon, the knife of what about the women's, this is offensive to the women's, the best way to disarm those people is to say, well, what about the men? Because the instant you do, people start thinking again. People start realizing, they start contextualizing. So artists need men's issues, because men's issues diffuse, disarm, and shield against the weapons that people are using to censor artists, that these people are using to censor artists. Now, having said that men's issues and having said that artists need men's issues as a shield, and incidentally, if you're a man, the fact that you can use your vulnerabilities, the fact that artists can use your vulnerabilities to diffuse what has been throughout human history the greatest force of oppression and censorship of art is this idea that it's offensive to women. The fact that artists can use that to protect themselves, I think you should be proud of that. I mean, what better use is there of a person than to be able to lend their strength, in this case your vulnerability. I know it's a female way of looking at the thing, but to lend your strength to protect another. So you should never feel ashamed of your vulnerabilities. Not when they can be used as a shield to protect people from being silenced. Now, I think that not just artists need men's issues, but men's issues need artists. Because artists are the ones who make the unique, the new, the novel accessible. They pull those fantastic thoughts out from wherever they come from and they give them form. Men's rights is the idea of recognizing men's vulnerabilities. Instead of saying, when a man is vulnerable, let's just throw him out. But the idea of recognizing and saying, hey, this is something we need to address, or at least think rationally about, it's radically new. It's so radically new that when I talk to feminists about my concepts, for example, when I talked to the feminists at Calgary Expo, I had no sense that the panelists had any understanding of what I was actually saying. They couldn't understand it because they were so steeped in the traditional gender role, in seeing their power in terms not of their own agency, but in terms of the ability to judge men's agency and the ability to shame men for how they act, rather than the ability to act as a woman. The only thing they understood was that I was somehow taking their power away because I was questioning their victimhood. They're so used to seeing their power in terms of victims, in terms of reacting to being acted upon, reacting to men's actions, reacting to judging men's actions, that they can't conceive in a world in which they have power through their own actions. So it's misogyny to question their claims of victimhood, because you're taking away their power. They couldn't even conceive of what I was saying. And that's where we're at. We're at the precipice of human knowledge. One step beyond, and we're basically falling into the void. And this is where artists, revolutionary artists, find their home. Pulling the things they find in that swirling chaos beyond human knowledge, pulling out of that place with no rules, pulling it out, giving it rules, giving it form, so the rest of us can see it. That's why men's issues and men's rights needs artists, because it's a concept that's beyond the ken of most humans at the moment, and artists are the bridge between the inconceivable and the improbable. That's why men's issues needs artists. And for those of you who think I'm a cultist for saying that art needs men's issues, I don't even know if men's issues will ever be able to be used as a weapon the way women's issues are. It may be that men's issues can only ever be used to neutralize the use of women's issues as a weapon. Not neutralize talking or rationalizing or thinking about women's issues, but just their use as a weapon. And allowing us to once again think about these human problems in a rational way. But maybe that's what's actually needed. If we want to deal with those human problems, we need to think about them rationally. There just isn't the psychological or biological compulsion behind it. There isn't the compulsion to save men as there is for women. So first and foremost, men's issues may only ever be used or only ever useful to protect the new, protect the creators, and return the conversation to the rational and the realistic. So I guess if you're a man, is that enough? Is that enough? Is that enough? Do you need to be a victim class, or can you just be perspective? Just be a way of seeing these issues in rational terms. And to the people who would say that what I'm promoting is cult talk, I would say that I don't think there's ever going to be a culture that's going to take these issues and turn them into a weapon, because there's nobody. There's no
innate psychological reward.
There's no innate psychological reward pathway. But we can take these issues and we can turn them into a shield for artists, and we can turn them into a way of looking at these human problems in a rational and solution-based manner, rather than in a way that simply perpetuates and empowers bullies to censor creators. And I'm done, Brian. Take it out.